West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't understand why this is an issue.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, March 31st, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got an entire show planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We've got a really great show, jam-packed. We have a newly elected GOP chair here in Colorado, and it's Britta Horn. She won on Saturday. We're going to talk about that. Heidi Ganal is going to join us here in just a few minutes to talk about her perspective on what happened. Is this a bounce back from the Dave Williams era of leadership of the Colorado Republican Party? She won by a few votes. It wasn't overwhelming, but she definitely took the victory there on Saturday. So does that mean things are going to change for the Colorado Republican Party?
I also think that to a certain extent it begs the question of what does this say about the Dave Williams era? Because it was sold during the KBB era that the Williams election and the people that came into power with him was a rejection of that thinking. That at the time it was, we need more true believers. We need more people that are going to traffic in this. If we only would stick true to these principles, we all could be winners. And then we'd all have more money and pots of gold and everything else. And so now that this tacks back the other direction, is it just as much of a reset or rejection of that idea as the Williams era was of the KBB era? So what does it say about the direction of the Colorado GOP?
Want to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Were you there on Saturday? Were you in the room? I'd love to hear what you thought, what the feeling was like in the room. It came down to two people, essentially. After one ballot, Richard Holtorf dropped out, Darcy Shannon dropped out, a number of other smaller candidates, as far as vote getting, dropped out. And then you had going into the second round, essentially Lori Sane, representing the kind of traditional Dave Williams side of things happening. And then Britta Horn, the more, I guess you would call, unity party. That's what she went after, the unity wing. I want to bring people back together, no more division, that type of thing. And that's who won, Britta Horn. So we'll get into that in a second, but I want to hear from you, especially if you're in the room. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. In the 7 o'clock hour, Frank McNulty is going to join us. Big contract being announced and signed by Deion Sanders Friday afternoon. I got to take a little bit of I'm going to take a little bit of credit for this.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, okay.
Because I got...
Because you're wearing the jersey. No.
I'm wearing the jersey, but I got one shot to briefly meet the president when I attended a CU football game, and I went right in, shook his hand, and I said, Deion Sanders is doing great things for your university. Do whatever you can to keep him.
Oh, it's very smart.
That was my very direct lobbying effort.
It's very smart, and we'll get into it. The size of the contract, I think, is a preventative measure. This is one of those things that is telling Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, stay away. That the check you're going to have to write to break this contract will be significant. And you see this all the time in international soccer. player that most recently came to mind is someone who was at the peak about a year and a half ago or so, the peak of transfer, until the team put a price tag on him, and it was Victor Osimhen. And once the team put a price tag of $125 million just to get him out of his contract, that's not to even pay him to play for your team. You are going to have to give the team that owned his rights $125 million just to take him from them and have him put on your jersey. That kept everybody away, and I think that's this tactic as well. Yes, the number is enormous, but I can also say the number is somewhat justified. But this is a keep off the grass contract. That's exactly
and I'm
what this
so
is.
glad they did it.
Yeah.
And joining us to give us some
Smart.
insight,
Very
Frank
smart.
McNulty, the regent, or a regent up there at the University of Colorado, will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour, along with Rory O'Neill. Have they found the Ark of the Covenant? So cool, this little CIA thing.
All right,
that's
we're going to melt
popping up.
faces. This is great. We're taking down the Nazis. I'm excited.
At 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking about that as well. Nationwide injunctions and Senator Chuck Grassley with an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. We'll get into that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then you've probably heard the story of this parent or this high school student down in Durango that left their parents and has moved in with their teacher, 17-year-old girl, now 18-year-old, who identifies as a boy. This was broke by the Daily Wire. We're going to talk with Lori Gimmelstein, who was part of the effort to raise awareness around this in the 9 o'clock hour. Fascinating story coming out of Durango. So, whole lot to talk about. We're kicking it off. We want you to be a part of the conversation. Again, the phone number, 303-696-1971. Now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Happy Monday, 37 and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the Colorado GOP elected a new chairperson Saturday. It's former county treasurer and volunteer fire chief Britta Horn. She says the party has no money and no specific plans in place for winning elections. In her first 100 days, Horn's plans are to unify the party through fundraising, candidate recruitment, and other initiatives. A man released after spending 1 year in jail is now in custody with ICE. Ignacio Cruz Mendoza was the truck driver who was involved in a semi-truck rollover crash last year that killed one person on Highway 285. Cruz Mendoza did not have documents allowing him to stay in the U.S., did not carry a U.S. commercial driver's license, or had an employment application with his trucking company. ICE officials say over the last 20 years, he was returned back to Mexico 16 times. President Trump trying to prevent World War III, but Ukrainian President Zelensky, evidently being led by the warmongers from the EU and NATO, continues to wreck himself.
Zelensky, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems. We made a deal on rare earth, and now he's saying, well, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that. So if he's looking to renegotiate the deal, he's got big problems.
47 on Air Force One right before they landed on Sunday. DJT says this Wednesday will be our Liberation Day with new tariffs set to take effect. Trump is calling that date Liberation Day because the tariffs against Canada, Mexico, China, and the European Union will undo decades of them taking advantage of the U.S. Elon posted on X over the weekend, first of all, there are no cuts to Medicaid, Social Security, or other entitlements. And then he said, unless stopping fraud is considered a cut. Second, he said, organizing a campaign to call for the death of someone is illegal. The organizers and funders will be found and prosecuted. Over the weekend in Wisconsin, Elon calling out one of the protesters.
Yeah, it's really wild. So, it was inevitable that at least a few Soros operatives would be in the audience. Give my regards to George. Say hi to George from me. USA, USA, USA.
Elon gave out two $1 million checks to two attendees. They signed a petition against activist judges. Musk and his group are backing Republican Supreme Court candidate Brad Schimmel ahead of Tuesday's critical Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which he called gigantic. Universities and athletic associations are now allowed to pay student athletes directly for using their name, image, or likeness. Governor Polis signed the bill into law on Friday, but is calling for more transparency on the amount of pay student athletes would receive. The governor says the new ruling will help athletes build their careers and help universities attract and retain top talent. One aspect of the law will allow players to sign deals with sponsors who are competitors of official university sponsors. Weren't able to do that before. 47 says there's a tree supposedly planted at the White House by former President Andrew Jackson. It has to come down. The president posted online Sunday that the magnolia tree has become a safety hazard and has to be removed. He said the wood would be preserved and repurposed. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 36 in Parker, 35 in Westminster, 37 in Denver. The Rockies are 1-2. They're at Philly today at 1 o'clock. T-Wolves at the Nuggets tomorrow. Flames at the Avs tonight. DU advances in college hockey playoffs. They beat BC. And all four number one seeds advance in the Final Four in college hoops, if you're checking your bracket. Jeff and Billy continue.
You know, I haven't seen a mask in so long. You're wearing a mask. So nice of you. I haven't seen anybody wearing a mask in a long time. It's good. You feel more comfortable, right? Good.
I can't get enough of that. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Shower activity developing late tonight, lows in the mid to upper 30s. Mostly cloudy Tuesday, showers likely, rain snow mixed, highs 50s. A few rain and snow showers Tuesday night, a low near 30. Wednesday into Thursday, a chance of rain and snow showers and cool. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center. It's going to be a cool, wet...
Well, Bill, my wife and I had 2 nice nights out. I'll tell you about the second one first, and then I'll go back to Friday night. So my wife uses Rent the Runway, which is a little area thing that you can rent
smart.
Dresses.
That is so smart.
And then they show up, and she had earned enough points that she got 2 dresses for free, basically, for it. And the first one we used Friday night was for the Stay Party Republican fundraiser.
Now, hang on
with
a sec.
Steve Bannon.
We're going to stop here just for a sec.
Yep.
And this is going to be a tip for all of the husbands out there to take their wives out. Walk us through just briefly what Rent the Runway is, in case anybody isn't familiar, because it is a phenomenal thing for the women in your lives. This is something where Jeff's going to get a lot of points.
I don't know that much about it, other than my wife ends up with dresses that show up that she didn't have to pay full price for.
Yeah, you basically show up and you don't pay full price. Is kind of the idea.
You rent them,
and
then you mail them back.
You send them back. Yeah, so you got to keep them clean. You got to clean them. You got to have them dry cleaned or something if you spill something on them. So there is a cost in case you do something so they can't be rented out again. But you keep them as good as possible, and then you send them back. Sometimes there's a cleaning fee. But the idea being that if you're always worried about, hey, I don't have a dress to wear to this, or you want to always be able to have something that looks really spectacular, this is a good slight subscription service that can really do a good deal of making you look like you have a wardrobe like someone at a dynasty. So that's really what you want.
Yeah, that's right. And then they send you multiple sizes.
Yes.
So you pick a dress and they send 2 sizes of it.
And here's the reason why. Okay, because in men's clothes, we've decided that the size is universal, where in women's clothes, it's just a suggestion. Every single manufacturer gets to decide what their own 10 is, what their own 5 is, what their own 2 is.
Yes.
They all get to choose.
That's
so there's
exactly
nothing that is universal. Yes, not at all. So
Friday night, we were going to go to the Colorado. We did go to the Colorado Republican Party fundraiser with Steve Bannon. I'll get to that in a second. But then Saturday night, my wife is like, well, I have another dress. I was like, let's go out.
Well, then, let's do it, yeah.
And then she's like, well, do you want to go to your favorite restaurant? And I said, no. Hold on.
No.
I have some tips.
Ooh, from a friend of the show.
From a friend of the show.
Yes,
So let me
Patty
go
Calhoun.
do some research into Westward's Best of Denver 2025.
All right.
And they actually had Best Date Night restaurant.
No, really?
Yeah. Best Date Night restaurant.
Okay, and what restaurant is it? What restaurant?
La Forêt.
La Forêt?
Yes.
Not familiar with it.
Which is, I think, French for the forest.
Oh, okay.
And it's not the nicest part of town.
That's why they have to hide in the forest.
That's kind of what made it unique, because my wife's like, "What? Where are we going?"
Oh,
and
I
she's
love that.
dressed really nice.
Yeah.
And I'm just wearing a suit. And so I'm like, well, we're going to roll the dice on this one.
Yeah.
And so we park and we walk by some shady characters, all that stuff, some abandoned buildings, boarded up buildings, classic Denver stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she's
Offered
like,
a free
where
knockoff
are you
Rolex.
taking?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
watch.
Yeah, pretty much that level.
Yeah. The guy's asking if you can find the queen and 3 cards. Yeah, a whole bunch of that stuff you guys run by. Yes, exactly.
But then we opened this door to this nondescript building into a beautiful, incredibly beautiful restaurant that is meant to be like you're in a forest.
Oh, wow.
And when you're in the forest, it's got these aspen trees, and it looks like a place that a fairy should live, like a little, magical fairy. And then the servers are all dressed in their kind of like rural French garb, which was really cool. So the food was remarkable. It's put together by an executive chef, the chef that's won these lots of awards, incredible French food. And so we enjoyed that dinner Saturday night. Friday night, though, we were down at the Colorado Republican Gala fundraiser with Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon was the prime speaker there. And you had all the protesters outside, and we tried to pull into the parking lot, and the protesters would run in front of the car and then almost try to, in some cases, just kind of fling themselves on top of the car as well. And that made some headlines. Car hits protesters, but the protesters were willingly doing this. This was because we tried to pull in too. Unfortunately, I stopped further back than some other cars did. Yeah. But they would throw themselves in front of these cars and then try to claim that they were hit and all that stuff.
So, on a side note, I got to hijack this just for a sec. I have to admit that That's something that I have done for years. Pretended that when I'm getting into a car or things like that with friends, getting hit, and my kids have picked it up and scare their friends on a routine basis. Where you'll be walking around the front of the car or something, and they're slowing down, and you just knock your hand against the side of the car and go, oh God! And they go, oh, did I hit you? No, I didn't hit you. One of my kids has leapt up on the hood of one of their friends' car. I've seen them out in front of
that's
as they're
basically
getting picked up.
exactly
Yes,
what they did.
exactly. So again, this is why I wanted to bring that up. That the protesters out there were acting like my kids before they turned 18, just to give us the mental impact of exactly where they were operating that evening. Okay, continue.
Well, and I was thinking this was going to be really fun to go out and interact with them, but I was with my wife. It was a nice night out, and it's not time for me to go have fights with protesters.
Yeah, don't bring Mrs. Jeff into that. And then what's going to happen is if you go out there and you start talking to him, she's going to be like, I thought we were going out. You're going to get that conversation
You're
afterwards.
back into work mode, Jeff.
Yeah. I hope you had fun with your friends. I was sitting alone. Yes, you would have had that conversation on the way home, my friend.
So we enjoyed the evening. We sat at the table with the Colorado Hispanic Republicans. By the way, Bill, everywhere I go.
Yeah. What?
Nobody talks to me about my side of the show.
I'm just a problem. That's the thing.
No.
I am such a problem.
You're the notorious Bill Thorpe. Everywhere I go, it's always Bill this, Bill that,
geez.
Bill
I'm so
this.
sorry.
I heard Bill say this. What's it like working with Bill? Bill.
Yeah.
Bill.
And just like, as long as I have my medication refilled every day, we're doing just fine.
And I'm like, where's the bar?
Yeah.
Where's the bar?
Exactly.
No, we had a great conversation. But Hugo
nice.
talked about you, sat with Hugo and
Hugo's
Raymond
fantastic.
Garcia, and Raymond talked about you as well. Great time. I want to specifically thank Colorado Hispanic Republicans for hosting us at their table.
That is so cool.
Wonderful folks. Steve Bannon spoke that night. Now, if you read the articles, you think Steve talked about how Trump's going to go back to jail if Democrats get elected. It was one passing line in his speech. A vast majority of what Steve Bannon did was attack
what did he do?
Jared Polis.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. What were his lines of attack? I'm just questioning.
2028. Lines like, I can see your 2% coming now.
Oh, nice.
You're progressive. You destroyed the state of Colorado. You think you can make it at that level. You're going to be destroyed by, is it Paul Shapiro? No.
But Shapiro's the last name.
The guy out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And I'm curious.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
You don't stand a chance against these guys. It was words right at Jared Polis to get him to back down, to feel smaller, that type of thing.
And the reason I'm curious is because I don't agree with Steve Bannon on many points politically, but he is very strong at messaging, and I respect his tactical mind as far as where he sees the gaps and how he sees ways that messaging can work. So he and I may have different opinions politically, but I can respect his game. I understand that he knows what he's doing based on messaging. He's super strong on that. And so I'm curious, really curious as far as what he sees as the weaknesses inside of Jared Polis, because I think that's very insightful. And I think he's going to be spot on with what's problems with Polis, too. I think he's going to be right.
I think you're right, Bill. And the perspective he had was that Jared Polis isn't up to it. He's not as strong. He's not as tough. He's not a good enough leader compared to some of these other Democrat governors like Gavin Newsom, like the governor out of Pennsylvania, like the governor out of Illinois. Basically, you're weak sauce, Jared Polis. That was the message that Steve Bannon had at the Republican convention on Friday. And my favorite line, I can see your 2% coming now, which is essentially how Colorado Democrats perform on the national stage. And I picked up on this at the DNC this last summer, when they gave Jared Polis like a very small part. They didn't even give him his own speech. He had to read from Project 2025. That was the only thing. So.
He got like a paragraph and a half, and it wasn't even that good. And where he was placed on the dais at the time was not good. They gave him bad applause lines. The whole idea was they were not focusing on him. There was nothing about his
way
performance
low on
there.
The totem pole.
Yeah, they did not think that he had a lot of gravitas in order to move the crowd based on where they put him, what they gave him to do, and the applause lines that he got. No.
Let's go to the phone lines here. We got Barney in Aurora. Good morning, Barney. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Morning, Jeff. Billy, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you? Hope you had a good weekend, man.
Billy might like me today.
Uh-oh. That's an interesting way to start off a Monday, yeah.
Yeah, I've got news for Steve Bannon. You are dead wrong. And I'm not going to vote for Polis, but Jared Polis, all he's got to do is call that little fella, head Trump up. He will figure this out. I would recommend him not sign the gun bill. I'm a gun guy. I think it would be idiotic, and all these presidents, Al Gore admitted it. Don't go near the guns. Jared Polis is the smartest guy in the room, and like it or not, he looks like kind of like a milky white Republican. The guy is very smart. Don't even, and I guarantee you put Jared Polis with the right material up against Gavin Newsom, I got news for you. Polis is going to wipe his whatever.
Way. Barney,
No, buddy.
Polis is
I'm
so
telling you.
boring. He
Wait a
he
minute.
cannot carry a speech.
Wait, did you see what he did to poor Stapleton in that little debate? And he was, it takes a while to get warmed up to this political crap. I'm telling you, you just keep this in the back. You can tell me I'm full of crap in 2028, but he is going to be the dark horse. I'm telling you. And Colorado, I don't care what you say, the economy never takes a total dump. The housing never goes in the dumper completely. So that's just the state. I mean, you could say that Hickenlooper, you go back to the guy that cheated on his wife, Roy Romer. It just doesn't ever really, I'm telling you, he's a dark horse. And if he stays away from that gun bill, Katie, bar the door, buddy. He's not. You got to look a little deeper. That's all I'm saying. Just a tiny bit deeper. And by the way, you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Barney.
You too. Yeah. So everybody talks to you. I'm sure they were saying Billy's an idiot. Billy's a jerk off. Billy's a dumbass.
No,
My kids say that every
they
day.
actually all love him.
I look at you
Which
guys
meant they were
worked
drinking.
good together. I didn't like him with Boyle. I didn't like him with what's the DA's name?
Yeah, Brockler.
Brockler.
Yeah.
There's something about you two. I don't know what it is. I mean, I woke up one day and it's like, wait a minute, this little son of a is entertaining as hell.
Thank you
and
so much.
even though he's full of crap sometimes, he's full of crap.
I deserve that.
It's just the way he's wired. I mean, you guys work good together, so I hope you guys never listen to the callers and say, and all these callers that say, I don't want to listen. You guys got to listen. It's entertaining. You got to listen
thanks.
to Billy. You just got.
Thanks, Barney.
Yep.
I appreciate that. We got to run. I appreciate that more. I appreciate it. And Jeff, that means you make me palatable, which is fantastic. You should take that with you. You should make that a sign.
It works somehow. But
Yes,
hey,
it does.
Mark Crowley, mark down this time because if Jared Polis becomes president, we got to go back to March 31st, 2025 and pull this audio from Barney. So, all right, we got Heidi Ganahl coming up. Very excited to talk to her about Britta Horn and what the direction of the new Republican Party is going to be here in Colorado. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Big weekend for Colorado Republicans as a new chairwoman was elected. Britta Horn winning over a second-round battle against Lori Sain. To give us some insight on what this means for the future of the Colorado Republican Party, joining us, Heidi Ganahl. You know her with Rocky Mountain Voice. Heidi, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning.
Well, good morning, Jeff and Bill. It's great to be on.
All right, give us your read on what happened Saturday. Good direction for Colorado?
Woo, it was intense, man. It was crazy. Everything that could happen drama-wise did, and following up, it's still happening on all the chats.
But
I think the results were great.
As you know,
I've been a big supporter of Britta all along. I've known her for a decade, and she's just a happy warrior, you guys. She just lights up the room. Her laugh is incredibly infectious, and she just wants everybody to get along.
Why can't we all just get along? So I think Britta's going to be a great chair. I think she's going to be inspirational, and she's going to do a good cleanup job. She's going to try and bring transparency and honesty and real talk about what we need to do to fix things in Colorado.
With Heidi Ganahl of Rocky Mountain Voice, Britta Horn as the new chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. So, Heidi, I believe that winning can bring a lot of factions together. When there's winning taking place, people are like, oh, I want to be on the winning team. Do you think Britta can get the Colorado Republican Party to a real winning position with regards to state house, state senate, local races, even maybe some statewide races?
Yeah, Jeff, I think she's got to keep it simple.
We've got to go back to blocking and tackling
and focusing on those fundamentals in order to win again. And that starts at the county level.
We also had some very important organizational meetings over the last month to elect our new county leadership. And there are 64 counties in Colorado. About 8 counties are really critical or key to the elections. And we've got a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary in each of those counties, and bonus members that voted for Britta. There were about 500 people that are state central committee members, which are part of the chair, vice chair, secretary, bonus members. I think about 450 or so actually voted on Saturday, which was a good turnout. And so she's got to start by building relationships with each county leadership team and giving them the resources they need, because they're going to be different for each county, to win those local elections. And we can start with the school boards just coming up in a few months.
Talking with Heidi Ganahl of Rocky Mountain Voice. So we're getting some questions here from folks on the text message line. Let's go to these. Let's talk about the division that took place. That last round of battle was between her and Lori Sain. How do you think Britta Horn brings the different factions of the Colorado Republican Party together?
Well, obviously, we're still divided because Britta won by only about 30 votes. So it was, I think, 232 to 203. So she won by 53%. That means we've got a lot of work to do. And I believe what's going to happen is she's going to stay focused on what tactically we have to do to win elections again, the mechanics of it. And there's not much argument about that. We know what to do. We know what people need to do in their neighborhoods and in their precincts, and activating their relationships with unaffiliated voters. So I think if she stays focused on that and stays kind of out of the drama and not trying to be in the national news all the time, I think that will be the best path forward. I have really been studying recently what's happening in New Jersey. And Jeff, I don't know if you've looked at the stats, but New Jersey's done like a 16-point swing over the last couple of elections. And it's darn near close to it might elect a Republican governor in, I think it's 26 is the governor election. Maybe it's 20. No, it's 26. So I've been asking a lot of questions about how they've done the turnaround there, and it's all local. It's all local collaboration. It starts in your own neighborhood. It's this saying I keep talking about on social media: you are the leader you've been waiting for in the Republican Party in Colorado. So clean up your own house. Do the work in your neighborhood, get to know all your like-minded voters, and you can get that information from your precinct chair, which is kind of your freedom-loving cheerleader in your neighborhood. And if you're not a Republican, it's still okay. You can still get to know those folks and still work with the party, even if you're not a registered Republican. And that's where all the magic happens.
We're talking with Heidi Ganahl of Rocky Mountain Voice. want to talk to you about how you've navigated some of these factions that exist within the conservative movement. I think you've done a really good job of not getting pulled into particular drama on that side. And a leader needs to understand that there are different interests that exist in a coalition that they're trying to build, but at the same time, unite people around a common vision in light of some of those differences. How have you done it over the years, and what's your advice to Britta?
You know, I got really good advice when I first joined the Regent Board in 2016 because it was divided. It was 5-4. We had the majority at that point. And a coach that I work with, a business coach, said, you know, in order to build rapport and relationships with people that you vehemently disagree with, you got to find just tiny little common ground. Like, do your kids both play soccer? Do you both like Chardonnay? Like, whatever it is, find some tiny little agreement and build on that. And what I know right now is that most Republicans that I agree or that I know can agree that we all like what's happening at the federal level. We all are like, every day is like Christmas. I mean, the stuff happening is all the things that we wanted to happen. Now, we can also agree that everything happening in Colorado is stuff that we don't like. And so if we can just agree on those two things, I think that's a really good starting point. And let's go from there. Let's roll up our sleeves and work to make sure President Trump gets what he wants done through. And let's make sure that we do everything we can to stop the Democrats from doing what they're doing in Colorado.
We're talking with Heidi Canal of Rocky Mountain Voice about the election of Britta Hoare as chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. So do you see now the Republican Party swinging back, as some may say, to the establishment side of the party? Do you think Britta Hoare reflects the establishment side of the Colorado Republican Party?
No, that's so funny when people say that. And they're saying, are you establishment because you have supported Britta? I'm like, no, Britta is a grassroots queen. She's been on the front lines in county politics and in local politics for a decade or more. She's been actually in politics for 30 years. Britta is like hardcore conservative. She believes in all the things in our platform. She is for the lawsuit that's fighting against Proposition 108 that went through that lets unaffiliated vote in our primaries. She's not for the Central Committee vote to opt or like cancel the primary basically and go to no ballots for any Republicans. But she is supporting the Claremont Institute with Kevin Lundberg, that lawsuit. So that's usually the big argument that's going on is like, do we opt out of the primary or do we not? And there's two different versions of that. She's for one and against the other. And obviously a lot of Republicans agree with her because they voted for her to be the chair. So I think that's the big rub, Jeff, about like establishment versus not. Otherwise, we all agree that what President Trump is doing are the right things. And we all agree that what's happening in Colorado are the wrong things. And that's where we can all come together as Republicans.
Well, and I pointed out when we interviewed Britta Hoare that she leads volunteer teams at CPAC, which isn't the most like establishment organization out there. In fact, it's about as MAGA as you can get. And Britta's been involved with CPAC for years. Question here from text messages. What about the relationship the state party had with the Libertarian Party? Keep some of those candidates out of a general election. Do you think Britta will be able to maintain that agreement?
Oh, heck yeah. Hannah and James and the leadership at the Libertarian Party are great. We all have a great relationship. I believe Britta does too. Everybody wants to work together to defeat the communists that are in the state capitol right now. So I think that's going to be a really positive thing going forward and going to be a great partnership in the 2026 midterms here in Colorado.
Heidi Ganal joining us on Jeff and Bill Live. You know her from Rocky Mountain Voice, also CU Regent, ran for governor. A little while ago, you talked about the idea that the Republican Party, or at least Republicans, in order to affect change like school board elections and things, that they know what to do. So I want to go back to that statement. The idea that the GOP party knows what to do, the question I then think it begs is, why didn't y'all do it in the previous 4-6 years? If you know what to do, why not accomplish it?
Dang, that's a good question, Bill. I don't have all the answers to why, but I think that it's that old funny poem about who's waiting for who to do what. Like everyone's expecting other people to do the work. Yeah. And it's gotten to the point where if we each individually don't do the work, then you better stop talking about it on social media because We know that it starts with voter turnout. You've got to get the people who are going to vote your way to turn out in these elections. And that starts in your neighborhood. It doesn't work. I mean, it helps to have nice, fancy digital ads and flyers, especially when you've got kabillions of dollars like the Democrats do. But the way we're going to shift Colorado is one neighborhood at a time. And it's not fancy, it's not sexy, it's not fun to say that's what we've got to do every weekend is go knock doors or have barbecues and invite our neighbors or have tough conversations. But that's where the rubber hits the road. That's what's happening in Wisconsin right now with the Supreme Court seat. If they're going to flip that seat or win that election tomorrow, it's going to be because of all the people on the ground having relationships. And shoot, I've been text messaging people in Wisconsin for the last couple of weeks through the Turning Point app. All of you can do that today and make a difference there. That's what's got to happen in Colorado.
Heidi Ganahl of Rocky Mountain Voice joining Jeff and Bill live. Now, okay, I think the big overarching question is, what does Britta Horn's election say about the direction of the Colorado GOP? In recent memory, we've gone through Christy Burton Brown, Dave Williams, and now Britta Horn is in the captain's chair. What does her election say about the direction of the Colorado GOP?
Well, I think Britta is all about common sense and what's going to win elections. And so I believe she's a strong conservative, but I believe she's also very practical and has the tactical capabilities to know how to turn things around. So I think we've got to let her get in, roll up her sleeves, look under the hood, see what she thinks needs to really, really be affected by the voters in our party across Colorado. And we need to kind of follow her lead. We elected her to be a leader. Let's let her lead. Let's see what she can do and honor the work that she's done over the last 30 years in politics. She knows her stuff. So I'm gonna work side by side with her. So are many others. We're all very excited to see what we can do in these 26 midterms. I have done some polling in the last couple of weeks through our Road to Red project that's very enlightening, and we're going to come out with some stories over the next week or two about this. And I'd be happy to come back on and talk about it. But it's not pretty. We've got a lot of work to do here, and I think we're going to win elections again by focusing on issues that we can bring to Colorado that can bring more people under our tent, like the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again, like homelessness, talking about how to deal with that issue where they've dealt with it positively in other areas and been effective, not in Denver, obviously. I called it the Make America Affordable Again, Make Colorado Affordable Again. Let's get back to figuring out how to get to the mountains and relieve traffic so that we can all play up in the mountains of Colorado again. Let's protect our environment. We all want clean land, clean air, clean water. And let's get rid of corruption and crime and Doge Colorado. I think those are all issues that we can win on if we stay disciplined and focused on the messaging.
Talking with Heidi Ganahl, Rocky Mountain Voice. You can learn more about Rocky Mountain Voice by going to rockymountainvoice.com. Be sure to follow Heidi Ganahl on X as well. She's doing great work there. Look, I've been a part of the conservative movement, the Republican, since 2012, since moving back to Colorado. And this is a time to unite around the chairperson, no matter how you felt about them. The problem in this state is always the Democrats. So unite around Britta, support her. Let's move forward and take on those that are really destroying the state, which are the radical progressives. Heidi Ganahl, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill show this morning.
Thanks for getting up early on Monday with us.
Thanks, you guys. Have a great week.
All right, we'll continue. We got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
right, Bill, let's give the people what they need on a Monday morning. Some You Choose the News.
Yes, it is Monday, but we are still going to try to make you smile. It is something that we call America's favorite fake radio news game show. You Choose the News. Yes, nobody that is in charge has any idea we are this irresponsible with the time that we have this morning. They don't wake up for about another 7 minutes, so we are going to take full advantage and play this fake radio news game show. I have scoured the interwebs for moments this morning to find really, really dumb stories about us humans, giving them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can goof off for a little bit. And again, remember, this is a giant secret, so shh, do not tell anybody or we will get into trouble. We had to avoid the issue last week during an all-hands-on-deck meeting. They started to dance around it, and then we quickly changed the subject, so I'm just saying. Alrighty, Blake Olson joining us from the newsroom, and Jeff Hunt in the studio. Gentlemen, here are your stories this morning. Headline number 1, follow the signs. Headline number 2, disability canceled. Headline number 3, you've got a friend in me. And headline number 4, pump it up. Mr. Hunt, your choice,
Disability canceled.
Yeah, disability canceled. This is a shocking story. A League of Legends streamer recently suffered a traumatic brain injury. He fell out of a third-story window and landed on his head. He miraculously survived, keeping almost full brain function intact, but after waking up from a weeks-long coma, he is mostly blind. But that has not stopped him from following his passion. The gentleman, known as No Armed Watley online, is currently in the top 0.5% of League of Legends players on the planet, and he can't see. How does he do it? What he has done is he has figured out a thing called animation canceling, but for his brain. Anybody here in the show understand what animation canceling is in regard to video games?
No.
Okay. No. Animation canceling is when you input something else for the game to do that cancels the animation it is currently involved in. Normally you see this in first-person shooter games. So you have to reload your weapon in a first-person shooter. After the magazine goes into the gun, you can push another action on your video game controller. It cancels the rest of the reload animation. That means you can reload your gun quicker than the entire animation. Make sense? Okay.
A little bit.
No.
So, okay. Basically, if you're performing
glitches.
Yeah, if you're performing an action, you can input another action, and it stops the entire animation. So you can perform a series of actions in a quicker series than you could possibly normally. So it just makes it quicker. What he's figured out is how to animation cancel his brain. Now, what he's got is he has a certain type of he has bleeding, has a hemorrhage inside of his brain, and one of his eyes is filling up with blood rather constantly. And when he lays down at night and wakes up, the blood pools in the back of his eyes. He's completely blind when he wakes up. When he gets up, it begins to pool in the bottom of his eyes and begins to leak out, eventually and dissipate into his body. He's figured out that if he looks up quickly, blinks, and then looks back down, it resets the blood in his eye, and he gets a couple of seconds of crystal clear vision. So while he is playing League of Legends, he animation cancels his brain when he needs to. Now he has one eye that's almost completely dark, one eye that he has just like fuzzy vision is, and when he gets into a battle, he starts animation canceling, rolling his eyes up, bringing him back down very quickly. The blood doesn't settle in the right place, and he gets crystal clear vision and is kicking ass, and he's in the top 0.5% of players on the planet, despite the fact that he's mostly blind. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Isn't that
I've
just
got a headache.
That broke my brain this morning when I found that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Life will find a way.
I know. It's crazy. Okay, Blake Olson in the news department. Follow the signs. You've got a friend in me, or pump it up. You got trouble. Yes, you've got a friend in me. I love the fact you pulled the song. And now, the man who could be the next president of Poland has widely been ridiculed after it has emerged that several years ago, he donned a disguise to praise his own book on television. He wrote a book under a pseudonym and then appeared in numerous interviews wearing a disguise, and on social media praised himself, saying if it wasn't of the influence of my alter ego, I never would have gone down this path. He's such a smart person. Even praised his politics online. And now it's been discovered that, yes, this is his pseudonym, and it is. So, yes, he's been complimenting himself online over and over again.
Nice.
Yes. Even saying his book was inspired by, yes, himself. And finally, Jeff Hunt, follow the signs or pump it up?
Signs.
Follow the signs. A Catholic community in Indiana thought they were seeing a sign of God. Red marks recently appeared on a communion wafer. Was it the sign of God's blood with the body? No, turns out it was actually just fungus and bacteria from other people's dirty hands. Yeah, they thought they had seen something divine. Nope, just an illness.
Be careful. All right,
Yes.
Frank McNulty's next. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, March 31st, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president. We're off and running. We got an entire hour planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson. Coach Prime sticking around with a record-breaking $54 million contract. What do you think? I'm thrilled, as you can imagine. Look at that. Wearing the jersey. I'm so excited. I love this guy for so many reasons. Not only as I think he's improved CU football in incredible ways, but he talks about Jesus all the time in Boulder, and no one can stop him. there's not enough money in the state of Colorado that you could pay this guy. I love him, and considering all the other areas we're wasting money, the fact that we're spending money on this guy makes me very, very happy. So I'm excited to talk with Frank McNulty, CU Regent, about the decision to extend this contract, $54 million. Absolutely worth every penny, but we'll get to that in a second. Now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
.38 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story on this Monday morning, DJT says our Liberation Day is Wednesday with new tariffs set to take effect. Trump is calling that date Liberation Day, claiming that yes, the tariffs against Canada, Mexico, China, and the European Union will undo decades of them taking advantage of the U.S. The Colorado GOP elected a new chairperson Saturday. It's former county treasurer and volunteer fire chief Britta Horn. She says the party has no money and no specific plans in place for winning elections. In her first 100 days, Horn's plans are to unify the party through fundraising, candidate recruitment, and other initiatives. Heidi Goodall from Rocky Mountain Voice on with Jeff and Billy last hour.
Everything that could happen drama-wise did, and following up, it's still happening on all the chats. But I think the results were great. As you know, I've been a big supporter of Britta all along. I've known her for a decade, and she's just a happy warrior, you guys. She just lights up the room. Her laugh is incredibly infectious, and she just wants everybody to get along. Like, why can't we all just get along? So I think Britta is going to be a great chair. I think she's going to be inspirational, and she's going to do a good cleanup job. She's going to try and bring transparency and honesty and real talk about what we need to do to fix things in Colorado.
A man released after spending 1 year in jail is now in custody with ICE. Ignacio Cruz Mendoza was the truck driver who was involved in that semi-truck rollover crash last year that killed one person on Highway 285. Cruz Mendoza did not have documents allowing him to stay in the U.S., did not carry a U.S. commercial driver's license, or had an employment application with his trucking company. ICE officials say over the last 20 years, he was returned back to Mexico 16 times. 47 says he's not joking about serving for a potential third term. During a phone call with NBC News, Trump was asked about joking multiple times about serving 3 times, to which he replied that it wasn't a joke, while also claiming he has the highest poll numbers of any Republican for the last 100 years. Hey, a new MAGA idea for Trump? I said it first, remember. Obama had 3. How about me? Go make some money.
I like that. There you go.
You know, I think
Steve Bannon brought that up too. I mean, there is a constitutional prohibition right now, and so it would have to change. And I'm not quite sure how you get it past 2/3 of the Senate at this point.
Yeah, that would be difficult. But why not talk about it? Why not push it? We're going to learn a lot in the next year, 2, 3 years. So people may change their mind about that after what they learn. Who knows? President Trump trying to prevent World War III, but Ukrainian President Zelensky evidently doesn't want peace.
Zelensky, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems. We made a deal on rare earth, and now he's saying, well, you know, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that. So if he's looking to renegotiate the deal, he's got big problems.
47 on Air Force One there talking to reporters. And DJT says this Wednesday, we already talked about that with Liberation Day, but Elon gave out two $1 million checks and to two attendees at a rally in Wisconsin over the weekend. They signed a petition against activist judges. Musk and his group are backing Republican Supreme Court candidate Brad Schimmel in a huge election tomorrow. Let's see, it's Wisconsin's Supreme Court, which he called gigantic. He also talked about the radical lefty communists.
Isn't it shocking how much violence and hatred is coming from the left? I mean, isn't it supposed to be the party that they claim to be the party of empathy, and yet they're burning Teslas and shooting up dealerships and calling for the death of the president and me? I'm like, guys, this is insane. Like, they're gone psycho. I mean, it's really like, I totally understand if somebody doesn't want to buy a product. Yeah, it's up to you. It's a free country, but you don't have to burn it down. Okay? But much. That's somebody else's car. Leave it alone. Thanks, guys.
So someone yelled out, "We got your back." In Wisconsin. Actor and comedian Paul Rodriguez is facing drug possession charges after he was arrested in California. The Burbank Police Department confirms Rodriguez was arrested following a traffic stop on Friday night after he was allegedly found with narcotics. The 70-year-old was booked into jail and released with a citation. 34 in Castle Rock, 36 in North Glen, 38 in Denver. The Rockies are 1-2. They're at Philly today at 1 o'clock. Opening day for the Rockies is this Friday at 2 o'clock at Coors. The T-Wolves at the Nuggets tomorrow. The Flames at the Avalanche tonight. And DU, they advance in the college hockey playoffs. They beat BC. And all number one seeds in the college basketball NCAA tournament, March Madness, advanced to the Final Four in college hoops. Jeff and Billy continue.
Something about you two. I don't know what it is. I mean, I woke up one day and it's like, wait a minute, this little son of a is entertaining as hell. And
so
even though he's full of crap.
I deserve that.
It's just the way he's wired. I mean, you guys work good together.
You can always count on Barney. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Weather here in Denver, a continuation of the wet weather that developed late last week and over the weekend. It'll be partly cloudy to cloudy today. We will reach the low to mid-60s. Watch for morning fog. There will be a little bit of light shower activity developing late tonight. Lows in the mid to upper 30s. Mostly cloudy Tuesday. Showers likely. Rain, snow mixed. Highs 50s. A few rain and snow showers Tuesday night, a low near 30. Wednesday into Thursday, a chance of rain and snow showers and cool. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Hey friends, do you know where your last meal came from? Sure, it was at a restaurant or made at home with food from the grocery store, but where did it come from before that? Chances are it came from a family farm or ranch right here in Colorado. I want to chat with you about my friends over at Colorado Farm Bureau and the important work they're doing representing Colorado agriculture. It's an industry that I'm passionate about and has been a part of Colorado before it became a state. From family ranches on our eastern plains to local peach farms in the orchards of Palisade, they provide a wholesome and sustainable food production and contribute billions to our economy. Yes, billions. And my friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau work hard to represent our agriculture industry. Farm Bureau members have been coming together for 104 years to protect agriculture and help it grow and prosper. You can join them and help continue this legacy. Join and help support family farms and ranches at coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com. All right, a record. I mean, this is so exciting because I was begging for this to happen. Coach Prime landing a $54 million contract extension to keep coaching with the CU Buffs. He's sticking around. I adore this guy. I love what he's doing with the program, but I love the fact he talks about his faith all the time. In Boulder, no one can do anything about it. All right. Joining to give us a little bit of insight on how this all took place, a regent with the University of Colorado, Frank McNulty. Good morning, Regent.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining
morning.
the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning, Jeff. Morning, Bill. Happy to be with you guys this morning.
Well, a lot to celebrate up at the University of Colorado. Glad Coach Prime's going to be sticking around. Tell us how this came together.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it makes us rethink all of our life choices, right? I mean, the guy gets to play football, gets to play a game, and then gets to coach that game, and becomes one of the top 10 highest paid coaches in the ranks of college football.
Deserves
so
every penny.
I should have stuck with coaching when I was younger.
Mr. Prime Time. Now, I imagine a lot of negotiations back and forth. Maybe some other teams wanted him. But tell us why the University of Colorado decided he was so important to lay out $54 million for.
So a couple of things. One, he wants to be in Boulder, and that means a lot to us because it is a culture change that he's brought. It's a lot like, for those of you who remember Coach Mack from late 80s, early 90s, a lot like that time when Coach Mack was in Boulder. There is accountability in the program. These young men are expected to do well in school. They're expected to be able to manage the newfound wealth that they get because of name, image, likeness payments that they get now. And he brought a culture of winning, of success. And all of these things matter a great deal to the University of Colorado. And, the other thing I'll say, fellas, is he makes it fun. The guy is just always positive, super optimistic, and our alumni, our donors, our boosters, our leadership really appreciate the fact that he brings that to Boulder.
We're talking with Frank McNulty. He's a CU regent. Now, Frank, can you tell us about the economic impact that Coach Prime has had, maybe revenue-wise for the program itself, but then also enrollment-wise?
Yeah, so we have seen an increase in applications, which is great. An increase in, but not necessarily an increase in enrollment. We are pretty capped in Boulder right now, but the increase in applications has come as a direct result because of what Coach has done up there, and the fact that we're getting kids from across the country who are interested in going to school in Boulder now is a direct result. Every home game that we sell out grosses about just over $5 million for the university, and we had a sellout season last year, which is a really big deal. We can't really put a price tag on the ability of Coach Prime to promote the University of Colorado. We had in Boulder last year, we had Big Noon Kickoff and College Game Day out on the same day in Boulder with those beautiful views of the Flatirons behind Folsom Field. But there is a direct economic impact from ticket sales, but there's also that indirect economic impact that comes from people just being aware of the really great things that are happening in Boulder. And I'll also say this about Coach: his impact goes beyond the football program. He continues to teach in Boulder, teach class at the University of Colorado Boulder, and he helps out other professors, which is right along the lines of the kind of person that he is. So there is a lot of economic benefit to having him there, but also just real benefits to the university.
Oh, that's Frank McNulty, former Speaker of the Colorado House, current CU Regent, joining us, talking about the $54 million contract that Coach Prime got. We are all jealous, and none of us here on the show deserve it. But still, we'd take it if they offered it. I'm just saying. But what I want to ask you about, Frank, is some of what you just touched on, the indirect nature of what Coach Prime brings to CU. Can you talk to us a little bit not only about the direct example of, sure, selling out the stadium, but also recruiting? He's able to bring in a level of athlete that most other coaches can't because of his ties to the NFL. But I also want to talk to you and ask you about what does it do to elevate the program nationally? You talked about the 2 national college game day shows coming out here to do their shows before the game. And of course, it always helps sell when you get those pretty pictures of Flatirons on TV. Lots of kids want to come in and be part of the CU family. What does Coach Prime being part of the university mean indirectly to the school? We may not see it on the balance sheet, but where does he contribute in ways we may not understand?
So this, the extension that we agreed to with Coach and approved on Friday, brings him to the same place that the University of North Carolina is paying former NFL coach Bill Belichick. And, you know, Coach Belichick is well known. He's won Super Bowls. He's well known for a lot of things. But you just don't see the same type of...
Had to throw that one in as a Broncos fan. Had to throw that one in.
Cheater. You don't see the same type of energy around that program that you do what's happening in Boulder. And you don't see Belichick racking up the same types of high school recruits and players coming in out of the portal. Will he be successful? That remains to be seen. But you just don't see the same level of energy that Coach Sanders has in Boulder, and that's part of the national persona. I mean, I when I vacation other places, travel other places for work, if I'm wearing my CU gear, the question always is how the bus going to be this year. And now the answer to that is, I think we're going to be great. I think we're going to have a really good season. I think Coach has got a good plan. He's brought together a great coaching staff. I mean, what's lost a little bit in all of this conversation is the fact that he has Hall of Famers on his coaching staff, NFL players who have been through the grind, who understand what it takes, and are willing to pass that knowledge, pass that experience along to these young football players, and it's just it's a wonderful thing to see come together. And Jeff, you talked about Coach sharing his faith, and that has been a constant rub with some of the folks who don't appreciate a strong leader like Coach Prime sharing his faith openly on the internet, sharing it appropriately with his players and staff. And I think that has really fed directly in to this positive culture that we have going on in Boulder right now. And I think that it's a really big deal.
We're talking with Frank McNulty. He's a CU regent, talking about a $54 million contract extension for prime-time Deion Sanders to remain coaching at the University of Colorado. Now, what are your expectations for the coach? Did you talk about bowl appearances, win-loss records, those types of things?
Yeah, we do. We expect to build upon last season when we went to the Alamo Bowl. The bowl game itself was not really what we expected, not what we went to San Antonio for, but that sets the new base. And our expectation is that Coach will take this program to that next level. And looking at a bowl appearance in this 25-26 season, 9 or more wins, we're looking to a Big 12 championship. And as college football continues to evolve and things continue to change within the sport itself, having that level of success year after year is really going to matter, because at some point here in the next 5-6 years, we're going to hit another round of college football realignment. And the University of Colorado will either be relevant in that next round of realignment or we won't. And the expectation with Coach is that, and this investment in the program, is that we fully expect to be relevant in that next round of realignment. And I think our alumni and our donors and boosters, all of these folks expect the same. They want this program to be relevant as college football continues to evolve.
We're talking with Frank McNulty, CU Region, about the contract extension for primetime Deion Sanders. Now, we're getting a text message in here. Where does the coach's salary come from? Alumni donations, taxes? Can you give folks a sense of the budget breakdown, maybe for the university at large? How much taxpayer dollars go towards the university?
Yeah, so high level, any funding that comes from the state is used to educate students. Student tuition dollars are used to educate students. The football program essentially carries the athletics department at CU. Men's basketball will often break even from year to year. Women's basketball, when we have a really good season, will make money. But the rest of our programs, they rely on football and the money that football brings in from selling out those home games to the television contracts that we have and donors who are willing to give to the athletic department because they support what's going on out there. So our Olympic sports, which are great, and we do really well at year after year, they aren't the revenue generators for the athletic department. It's football. So coaches, the coaching salaries come from revenues derived from the athletic department, from the football program, and the vast majority of CU Boulder athletics is funded by revenue generated by football.
Now, I'm not sure this is going to be a fair question. Frank McNulty, current CU Region, former Colorado Speaker of the House. I want to talk a little bit larger, 10,000-foot view picture on the idea of conferences in college football. What the hell's going on? As far as conferences and everything else. I mean, leaving the Pac-12, looking at the Pac-12, what the hell? I mean, does CU have to jump into another conference in order to make the next step and start playing with the guys in the SEC, or is the conference idea done now that we have the playoffs? Just from your seat, being a CU regent and how important the football program is there, talk to us about the conference mess, if you want to, in college football, because for the life of me, I can't figure it out.
Yeah, no, you're sitting in the same seat as the rest of us. This is my opinion. It's not backed by any inside information that I have.
Oh, that's our favorite kind here on the
show. So it's just my opinion, but I do think that we are going to have another round of realignment in college football. What happened with the Pac-12 was it ended up being inevitable. The conference had just run itself into the dirt, and it was really too bad that had happened. But it did, and now they're trying to resurrect it with teams from the Mountain West, and we'll see how they do this year. But I do fully expect another round of realignment, and I believe that when we look at the college football playoffs and what we had called the Power Five and are now the Power Four conferences, that probably looks different in 6 years than it does now. And we want CU to be a player in that next round of realignment. We want to be not only in the discussion, but we want to be driving the discussion and be one of the schools driving the discussion. And that means that we invest now in what we're doing up there. And so far, folks are pretty pleased with what's going on. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty happy too.
I see Deion Sanders as once in a lifetime type of guys that come along. I mean, once in a generation, really. That you had Coach McCartney. I was a tiny little kid when that happened. Now I'm in my 40s. And when you get these guys that come along, they're so important. And it goes back to the importance of leadership and what a quality leader can bring to a program that you got to keep them. And otherwise, what else is going to happen? You're going to watch it kind of disappear back to what it was maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago? No, you hang on to Coach Prime. And I was up there and got a chance to visit a football game, and you had Republicans, Democrats, Independent. There's like nothing else we have in Colorado besides athletics that brings people together, and the energy and the excitement around this program from people that were traditionally even Democrats up there at the game, former advisors to members of Congress, Democrat members of Congress, all excited, everybody together. We don't have enough of this in Colorado. Coach Prime is a gift to this state. Whatever it takes to keep him is going to be well returned in value. He's a good investment, not only financially, but with regards to the reputation of the school and to the guidance of these students, which is probably the most important as you're laying out the future generation or future leaders of our nation coming from this program. It's worth every penny in my mind. Congratulations, Speaker McNulty, Frank McNulty, now CU Regent. Great get. Thank you for keeping him around. And one of the ancillary benefits I bought, I'm wearing a jersey right now, my Prime jersey. I love this guy so much. Speaker, CU Regent, Frank McNulty. You can follow him on X at Speaker McNulty, SPKR McNulty. Follow him there and continue to watch the good work they're doing up there at the University of Colorado. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Yeah, thanks. Have a great day.
Always appreciate it, guys. Be well and be blessed. Bye-bye.
Bill, I think a great move. As you can see.
I want that contract. Damn. But again,
you can just become friends with guys like that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they tend to hang out and share it with their friends.
Exactly. That's the thing. Although I do think
Prime time, we want you on the show. Come hang out with us.
Yes. It's money well spent because I believe, as we talked with Frank, I believe the benefits are not always seen on the balance sheet.
Yes.
That the profile, the recruits, the extra added eyeballs from games, the higher profile of the program, because, I mean, I hate to say it, but unless you are one of those academic nerds in high school, you know more about a school's athletic program than you do about their academics.
Yeah.
And normally kids are drawn first to the athletic program of a particular
they want to
university.
Have fun.
Yes.
Right?
And also
it's exciting to watch your teams win.
And because of the influence of parents, grandparents, or family that may have an affinity for a particular team. Like, okay, I have got a friend who is a huge Notre Dame fan. Didn't go to the school, but has some family friends and some family connections. Huge fan of Notre Dame, but it doesn't go around and go, did you see that latest doctoral dissertation that was released by so-and-so? Boy, was that just a... No. It's about the athletic teams. Yeah. And the kids that are in his life become Notre Dame fans because of his fandom. So I think this is great for the university because this allows more people to become CU Buff fans. It raises the profile, and you don't see his impact on the balance sheet. And you're right, this is a generational opportunity, and you have to give him NFL stay-away money. You have to give him that, or he will go. Jerry Jones wants him desperately.
Because this is what he'd bring to the Cowboys.
Yeah, and he is a lot of fun. I've spent a lot of times in locker rooms, and I've dealt with, and I appreciate Frank bringing up the idea of a Bill Belichick approach and a Deion Sanders approach. Now, the Deion Sanders' approach is much more fun to play for, but you have to have the enforcers. And I'm assuming he does some of that, but it is assistants. His assistants are really the enforcers. And if he's playing it right, like they do in the NFL, then Deion's really doing something neat. Having the head coach be the enforcer, then you have the assistants that have to kind of be the fun guys. And so I'm curious to see if Belichick will be able to set that up, because that's kind of a different thing. They talked about it years and years and years ago, that one of the best things that an NFL coach learns to do is to yell at their assistants. They're grown men that are playing for you in the NFL. Don't come over and yell at the grown men. Yell at the guy that's in charge of them, because they want to defend the guy that they're working for, their direct supervisor. So if you come over and you yell at the assistant coach, how come your line is doing this? I've talked to you 3 times this week about your line missing those blocks. I can't believe that you are so bad at this that your line is continuing to miss that block over and over again. The coach doesn't have to go over and yell at the player that's missing the block. The coach yelled at the assistant, and now the player wants to make sure the assistant doesn't get yelled at. That's how you do it, and that's what I see from Deion in CU, and I think he's doing a great job. I think this is wonderful.
All right,
Money
what
well
do you
spent.
think? Phone lines are open 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Has the CIA found the Ark of the Covenant? We're going to get to this news story next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. We're melting faces.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Has the CIA found the Ark of the Covenant? If you remember the Ark of the Covenant, it was featured in the Indiana Jones film where all their faces melt because they look at it. But it actually is a lot more important than that. This was the prime storage containment for the Hebrews as the Ten Commandments were stored there. And a decades-old article or a decades-old document has been discovered in declassification efforts by the CIA that may hint to its location. Joining us to give us some insight is Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. Rory, do you still have your face?
Yeah, still intact. So it's I got that going for me. But it's fascinating.
You haven't gazed upon the opening of it, huh?
No, but the New York Post published this last week about this document that was declassified 25 years ago. So this has been floating around for a long time, but ever since the Post article, the internet's been lighting up with it. This story that the CIA would enlist clairvoyant people with ESP, to try to find mysterious or sacred objects. And back on December 5th, 1988, remote viewer number 32 gave a description that certainly sounds like the Ark of the Covenant may have been somewhere in a dark, wet place in the Middle East, near mosques or a building with domes and surrounded by people speaking Arabic. But there was also some sort of an unknown energy force protecting it and keeping us from accessing it.
There's stories written in the Bible that even if you touched it, you would die. So you had to carry it with these wooden these poles, but it was a very important part. And you're talking to a guy who graduated from seminary. This is something we would discuss in seminary. Whatever happened to the Ark of the Covenant? Right. Some of the experts, some of the biblical experts that trained us up would say it was likely taken, if I remember correctly, by maybe Babylonians and probably melted down. They were never really sure because it just disappeared after a certain point when there were battles taking place between the Jews and others in the Middle East. So no one ever really knew what happened to it. But what does the CIA document kind of hint to where it may be or what's happened to it since?
Yeah, we didn't really get a whole lot of detail about where it may be. The person said the Middle East, so that doesn't really help too much. But there are lots of theories that the Ark of the Covenant is in the Middle East, or perhaps even in Ethiopia. Or as you said, may have been destroyed when the Babylonian Empire conquered the Israelites back in 600 BC. So lots of different theories out there. Now, this document that was declassified really only goes into what was happening with the Project Sunstreak, as they called it, in 1988. Doesn't really say if the CIA followed up on what the clairvoyant had to say and if they found it or not.
If you remember the Indiana Jones series of movies, it ends up in a box stored at Area 51 is where it is. Were there other things that were discovered as a result of Project Sunstreak? Was this an actual successful operation by the CIA to find anything?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that it led to any significant discovery or if they really got any beneficial information. Keep in mind, 1988. Maybe this was a 1-900 call to Miss Chloe. We don't know how much they were actually doing legitimately to try to find what they described as mysterious or sacred objects. But I don't think anything's turned up in the last 25, 35 years.
Now we're talking to Rory O'Neill, joining Jeff and Bill live. He's the NBC News national correspondent, talking about how we're using clairvoyance to find the Ark of the Covenant. Now, Rory, in some of the reporting, did it hint at anything else they were having the clairvoyants look for? Perhaps I'm just, I'm spitballing here. Maybe all the socks that disappear when you put them in the dryer? I mean, are they looking for anything else?
Yeah, that would at least have been useful.
Yes.
Yeah. So what they really do is they sort of say, they try to lightly direct the clairvoyant to sort of find different things. They didn't necessarily say, tell us where the Ark of the Covenant is. But the fact that this clairvoyant then came back with these descriptions. But boy, the descriptions really do fit the bill of what we saw in Raiders of the Lost Ark with Harrison Ford. So, was this from the movies? Again, this was 1988. Raiders of the Lost Ark was 1981. So was this more movie related than actual ESP? Tough to tell.
Talking with Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent. Now, if the Ark of the Covenant was discovered, would it likely be returned to Israel? Is that where it would go with the country? I mean, I imagine there would be geopolitical issues around the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant.
Finders keepers, right? It would depend on who found it, I suppose.
Wow. Well, we'll continue to track this. Never kind of a slow news day. There's always things being discovered, including possibly the Ark of the Covenant, which is kind of fun. As a historian, as a guy from the seminary days, I always appreciate this and find it interesting. So appreciate Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent, joining us on that. I mean, this was a powerful thing, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
In the Old Testament. This is what went before the Jews. Yeah. Everywhere they went, if you even touched it, it would kill you. It was the place that stored the 10 Commandments from Moses. Could you imagine if we were able to rediscover and have the 10 Commandments?
Never really understood the
hanging on a wall in Texas?
The touching it death thing. I don't know. It just seemed like, I'm just saying that, if you had a large list of stuff that the perks were going to be if you touched the 10 Commandments or the vessel that was holding them, I would have thought, longer hair, regrowing that finger you cut off, something like that, something more positive. I'm being facetious, but the idea that, these were the 10 Commandments, these are some of the most sacred texts, tablets inside of the Jewish religion.
Don't mess around. Don't mess around.
Well, again, I think that, there could have been some positive things. It could have been, hey, I can't say that out loud. Sorry. I was going to say something that would be wholly inappropriate, especially given the topic and the subject, but that's the way that my brain works. I'm just wondering, how come it's always the bad things? There's never a good curse. Never, they didn't get superpowers or nothing like that. That'd be wholly different. I'm just saying.
54868 saying it's
like
Chuck Norris's coffee table.
There we go. Oh, that's fantastic.
I find this very interesting, where it could end up, the power that enlisted in it, and what could happen if it was rediscovered. It would be earth-shattering if this was rediscovered. And I'm very excited to see this. So
yeah, it would be.
All right, well, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The Rory O'Neill from NBC News joining us because a classified document, I guess, was released 25 years ago that's just now being...
Yeah. They're like, oh, wait.
Wait. This is interesting. Decades-old CIA documents on the Ark of the Covenant resurface amid classified group text spam.
Yeah. And I love the fact that it's clairvoyance they were using to find it. And
did you see the text message?
Yeah. No, what?
Where was Doge when CIA was hiring clairvoyants to locate the Ark of the Covenant?
I just, the thing for me is that how did they test the clairvoyants, who made it and who didn't? Because I keep thinking like, you'd start off with something like, okay, can't find my car keys. Can you tell me where the car keys are?
Right,
something like that.
Right.
I mean,
some basic
something
stuff.
easy. Yeah, to see if they can get it right
There's
or not.
There's a card in
Yeah,
front of me.
Exactly.
What does the card say on the other side of it?
Yes. Oh, you're right again. Yes, exactly. Yes, from Ghostbusters. But yes, so I know.
Have some of that work, though? I remember, and I'm just going back to like my feelings about watching Unsolved Mysteries when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That somehow the clairvoyance sometimes helped. Maybe?
Yeah, and the thing is that if the clairvoyance sometimes helped, then it's really just guessing. Because if they're good at it, they could help more often than just sometimes. I'm just saying. Apologies to all the clairvoyants out there, but you knew this was coming because you could have felt it. I'm just saying.
It was a 50-50
yes,
choice.
Exactly. That's
and
really
you
it.
can make it.
Exactly.
I just can't wait. There are things as a seminary guy that you just love the idea of finding this someday, maybe Jerusalem rebuilding a temple, the coming back of Christ, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, finding it again is
cool.
absolutely so fantastic. Oh, music's not done yet. I was a surprise there. I thought
Pink's still playing.
That was done, yes. Pink is still going on. Yes, the party is still starting.
Did the clairvoyant see that coming?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, that idea. And it's like, who was it? The guy with the last name of Edwards that was doing the thing, he would talk to ghosts all the time and going at him and doing cold readings. And when you look at how that is done, the idea of the clairvoyance, you kind of like, ooh, yeah.
That's just scammy.
Yeah, totally scammy. Completely.
Like there's
totally.
someone, I'm talking to someone who's a woman. Is there someone in your life that was a woman?
That was a woman.
Yes, my aunt.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well then she's older.
Yeah, and
she's an older
Yeah.
woman.
And notice that it's just like a name that I see an A. Oh, my aunt's name was Sarah. The second letter's A. Oh, must be Sarah. Yes, as if Sarah couldn't have said, "Psst, hey, this is Sarah." Yeah. Exactly. I don't understand it.
There's stuff that's interesting in this. So the document, the clairvoyant said it's somewhere in the Middle East, hidden underground, dark and wet, and protected by the use of a power unknown to us. The reports were unclassified and released in 2000, but the symbol has relevance today for many folks. The Ark of the Covenant is one man-made object in Judaism that is considered holy and has accompanied the Israelites in war. Let's go to the phone lines. Mary, Wyoming. Good morning, Mary. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Do you know where it is?
Yes. Hold on a sec. I got to get you off speaker. Nuts. I hate technology.
Yeah, her clairvoyance doesn't work with speakers.
Okay.
It's one of the
All right.
Okay, yes.
I'm back. Remote viewing was big. I mean, for years between all the different militaries were into it.
Yeah.
Remember, they were targeting, using it for espionage and spying. And I remember Art Bell. That was for years was a big deal. They used to have, I can't remember. It was a military guy, and he had a business out of it.
Yeah, they could do it.
I even bought the series.
No way.
You could buy I remember there wasn't CDs back then.
Yeah.
It was, I think, VCRs or whatever it was. But and you could learn. But one of the things that they really focused on the guy that Ed Dames, that is his name.
Yes,
Ed
that is.
Dames.
Yep, I remember his name. Yeah.
Yeah. You could remember it was about, you could also remote view the lottery numbers.
Yes. You could, you'd be able to remote view almost anything if you learned how to do it. And it was just about teaching you.
Right.
Yes.
And there were people, and his program was about earning money, and they did. They would report back in on these people would constantly, especially win the lottery numbers.
Weren't there people that used divination rods to find water? And that ties back to Mormonism. Joseph Smith was a divinator and all that.
My water well was from a local here that's lived for the longest time. He had the 2 wires, and he identified where the well was.
And is the water working?
Oh, yeah. And they had tried getting water up here before me.
Oh, that's crazy.
And this old guy, I went to him because he was also the electrician. He was a contractor. He built incredible buildings in Orphans, like the schools, etc. So this was not no dummy.
Wow.
But in other words, he was a diviner.
So in the Indiana Jones movie, the Ark of the Covenant's held by the CIA. I've always wondered if they got it and just kind of helped it or hid it because they knew that this could become a major force of international conflict. Mary, really appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Always fun to talk to Mary.
Oh, yeah. It's a good way to start the week.
All right, 8 o'clock. Should we stop these nationwide injunctions? Chuck Grassley's got an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. We'll get to that. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, March 31st, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We've got a lot to cover this hour. Chuck Grassley today introducing a new bill to stop nationwide injunctions. He's got an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal saying that what these judges are doing to the Trump administration far outweighs any other type of temporary restraining orders put against other administrations by far. And in fact, this was not regularly done prior to 1963. Does it need to change, and is it up to Congress to change it? We're going to get into that this hour, so you're not going to want to miss this conversation. By the way, you're invited to be a part of it. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Now it's time for news with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
.39 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, freed hostage Yarden Bibas with Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes. This had to have just crushed her.
If you could say something to President Trump, what would you say?
Please.
If you could say something to President Trump,
technical,
what would you say?
Please stop this war and help bring all the hostages back.
And you think he can help?
I know he can help. I'm here because of Trump. I'm here only because of him.
Oh, and she sat there and had to listen. I'm surprised they actually aired it. The Colorado GOP elected a new chairperson Saturday. It's former county treasurer and volunteer fire chief Britta Horn. She says that the party has no money and no specific plans in place for winning elections. So in her first 100 days, Horn plans to unify the party through fundraising and candidate recruitment and other initiatives. Heidi Ganal from Rocky Mountain Voice on with Jeff and Billy this morning.
Everything that could happen drama-wise did, and following up, it's still happening on all the chats. But I think the results were great. As you know, I've been a big supporter of Britta all along. I've known her for a decade, and she's just a happy warrior, you guys. She just lights up the room. Her laugh is incredibly infectious, and she just wants everybody to get along. Like, why can't we all just get along? So I think Britta's going to be a great chair. I think she's going to be inspirational, and she's going to do a good cleanup job. She's going to try and bring transparency and honesty and real talk about what we need to do to fix things in Colorado.
A man released after spending 1 year in jail is now in custody with ICE. Ignacio Cruz Mendoza was the truck driver who, remember, was involved in that semi-truck rollover crash last year that killed one person on Highway 285. Cruz Mendoza did not have documents allowing him to stay in the U.S., did not carry a U.S. commercial driver's license, or had an employment application with his trucking company. ICE officials say over the last 20 years, this guy has returned back to Mexico 16 times. DJT says our Liberation Day is this Wednesday as new tariffs kick in. He says the tariffs against Canada, Mexico, China, and the European Union will undo decades of them taking advantage of the U.S. The president at the same time told NBC News that he couldn't care less if automakers raised the prices due to the implementation of a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles, because in the long run, manufacturing will return to the U.S. and we may see reciprocal or no tariffs soon. Elon gave out two $1 million checks to two attendees at a town hall in Green Bay on Sunday. The world's richest man and his political action committee organized the event for people who signed a petition against activist judges. Elon and his group are backing Republican Supreme Court candidate Brad Schimmel ahead of Tuesday's critical Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which he called gigantic. Elon called out one of our greatest enemies, George Soros, who funds terrorists and protesters who destroy cars and dealerships and almost everything in America.
Yeah, it's really wild. So, it was inevitable that at least a few Soros operatives would be in the audience. Give my regards to George. Say hi to George from me. USA, USA, USA.
A 70-year-old Idaho man is facing charges for allegedly hitting a Tesla counter-protester with his car in Idaho on Saturday. The victim was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Deion Sanders is now one of the highest-paid coaches in college football in 2 years. They've made a lot of money, and they've won a lot of football games. And he signed a new 5-year, $54 million contract. The new deal increases his base salary to $10 million starting this season. CU Regent Frank McNulty joined Jeff and Billy last hour.
He wants to be in Boulder, and that means a lot to us because it is a culture change that he's brought. It's a lot like, for those of you who remember Coach Mack from late 80s, early 90s, a lot like that time when Coach Mack was in Boulder. There is accountability in the program. These young men are expected to do well in school. They're expected to be able to manage the newfound wealth that they get because of name, image, likeness payments that they get now. And he brought a culture of winning, of success. And all of these things matter a great deal to the University of Colorado.
And he brought Jesus back to the campus. Amen. 36 in Lone Tree, 37 in Thornton, 39 in Denver. The Rockies are 1-2 at Philly today at 1 o'clock. Opening day at Coors is on Friday. Minnesota at the Nuggets tomorrow. The Flames at the Avalanche tonight. And DU advances in the college hockey playoffs. They beat BC. And if you're checking out your bracket, and you don't have all four number one seeds advancing to the Final Four coming up this weekend, then you're missing out. So it's all four number one seeds in the Final Four. Jeff and Billy continue.
But I believe we fight for something, not against something. And that's our optimism.
That is a classic. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's going to be a cool, wet week of weather here in Denver, a continuation of the wet weather that developed late last week and over the weekend. It'll be partly cloudy to cloudy today. We will reach the low to mid-60s. Watch for morning fog. There will be a little bit of light shower activity developing late tonight, lows in the mid to upper 30s. Mostly cloudy Tuesday. Showers likely. Rain, snow mixed, highs 50s. A few rain and snow showers Tuesday night, a low near 30. Wednesday into Thursday, a chance of rain and snow showers and cool. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no obligation roof
Welcome
inspection
back
today
to
at Roofing Colorado.
The Jeff and Bill Show, Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. We're going to talk about courts overreaching, legislating from the bench. Does Chuck Grassley have an idea to fix it, to let Donald Trump's agenda continue, or are the courts just doing what the courts are supposed to do? That's what we'll talk with you about in just a second. But first, I want to chat with you about Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Here's the thing. If you've got someone in your family that has a slow-healing cut, a diabetic ulcer, a pressure sore, don't mess around because that little tiny problem can become a very, very big deal. I saw it in my own life. My aunt had a chronic wound on her leg. The wound care facility she was seeing just maintained the wound, which meant keeping it open and just cleaning it out every couple of weeks. Well, while that wound was open because they kept it open and didn't work on healing it, she was exposed to MRSA. That led to some negative impacts on her health, meaning trips to the hospital, overnight stays, week-long stays, and in a couple of instances, stays that lasted longer than a month. It also led to some amputations because that torn skin and bacteria is the perfect place for dirt, germs, and other nasty things to get access to your body. So when a wound care facility is going to maintain the wound, you need to start asking questions, and you also need to ask, how do I get a hold of Wound Care Associates of Colorado? ColoradoWound.com, ColoradoWound.com, ColoradoWound.com. That is the easiest way to get in touch with them, because if someone in your life is dealing with that slow healing cut, that pressure sore, that diabetic ulcer, do not mess around. Wound Care Associates of Colorado do it differently. First, they promote faster healing. They don't want to leave that highway for the dirt, germs, and bacteria open. They want to shut it down. They want to close it. Just like, Donald Trump's doing down at the border in the south of us, closing it down. Same thing. No more illegal germs and bacteria getting into your body. Okay? I know it's not a great analogy, but you feel me, right? Yeah. That's why you contact Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Second is because of the service they offer you. They're offering you the concierge service without the concierge price. That means house calls. When you make an appointment with Wound Care Associates of Colorado, you're not looking at your schedule thinking, how much travel time is going to take? When do I have to take off? When do I have to do this? Do I have to do this? Let's say it's someone in your family. Maybe they're in a retirement community or they're stuck at home and you've got to be the one that transports them to the appointment. That's not what you're going to have to worry about with Wound Care Associates of Colorado, because they come to your location to deal with your wound. What could be easier? Not having to worry about making that appointment, getting to the office, sitting there in the waiting room, and then going in and then getting all the way back home. No. Your time is valuable. That's why Wound Care Associates of Colorado comes to where you are, and you get the treatment you need in the comfort, care, and privacy of your own home. Plus, their wound-certified nurse practitioner sets up a custom treatment plan just for you. So let's review. 1, better healing outcomes. 2, they come to you. 3, they're professionals that know what the hell they're doing, and they are committed to making sure your wound gets better. What other questions do you have? Don't go with anybody else. Recently, when one of the kids in my family had to have a small medical procedure, the incision, it wasn't healing properly. It was still open. After a couple consultations with a surgeon and just kind of, hey, just keep putting this cream on it and we'll see what happens. No, doc, that wasn't good enough. Not for my family. I reached out immediately to Wound Care Associates of Colorado. My kid is now on a custom treatment plan, and things are getting better. In just about 10 days now, she's seen dramatic results versus where she was just 14 days ago. It can happen that fast. Don't mess around, okay? A little deal can become a very big deal, like I saw in my life, and also the founder, Jennifer Walker, who started Wound Care Associates of Colorado, saw that as well. So don't mess around with this. If you have someone in your life that has that pressure sore, diabetic ulcer, slow healing cut, contact the best. Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Wound Care Associates of Colorado at ColoradoWound.com. ColoradoWound.com. When you reach out to them, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because it helps us out. Back to you, Jeff.
That's great to hear, Bill, and special thank you to Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Grateful for your support of our program. All right, amid President Trump's flurry of executive actions, federal district judges have increasingly and inappropriately inserted themselves into the national policy debate, writes Chuck Grassley in an opinion piece that came out in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. They have repeatedly chosen not only to decide the cases before them, but also to issue orders derailing executive policy nationwide. These nationwide injunctions have become a favorite tool for those seeking to obstruct President Trump's agenda. More than 2/3 of all universal injunctions issued over the past 25 years were levied against the first Trump administration. In the past 2 months alone, judges have issued at least 15 universal injunctions against the administration, surpassing the 14 President Biden faced throughout his 4-year term. Scholars can find no clear record of a universal injunction issued before 1963. The practice has become common only in the past few decades. It can have serious consequences for the American taxpayer. A Biden-appointed judge in the District of Columbia issued a temporary restraining order against Mr. Trump's pause of some USAID funding. TROs are supposed to maintain the status quo while review is pending. Had the Supreme Court not directed the judge to clarify this order, it would have forced $2 billion in taxpayer money out the door, most of it to entities that didn't even sue. These decisions also place undue stress on the judicial system by inserting political calculation into the selection of the judges and the resolution of disputes. Political and fiscal implications aside, district judges' abuse of temporary restraining orders and nationwide injunctions is unconstitutional, says Chuck Grassley. Article 3 of the Constitution tasks the judicial branch with resolving cases and controversies, not making policy. The obvious solution is to limit district courts to resolving the cases only between the parties before them. If the U.S. Supreme Court won't act to rein in the lower courts, Congress must act. Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution authorizes Congress to create and organize federal courts. On Monday, today, he will introduce the Judicial Relief Clarification Act to restore the constitutional role of lower courts by restraining their ability to issue universal injunctions. Under my bill, writes Chuck Grassley, lower courts could no longer block legitimate executive action by issuing orders to non-parties to the lawsuit. The bill would also make TROs against the government immediately appealable to make sure that prudence wins over rash decisions handed down in the heat of a political moment. He hopes lawmakers on both sides of the aisle will join in moving it forward. Not only Republicans have been alarmed by the far-fetching consequences of some district court decisions, 240 Democrat lawmakers, including Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin in 2023, submitted a friend of the court brief warning of the perilous consequences resulting from a district judge's move to block the abortion pill mifepristone. Justice Elena Kagan had similarly expressed dismay. Republicans and Democrats alike have cheered or criticized the policy implications of universal injunctions, but the approach inappropriately politicizes the federal court system and disrupts the balance of powers. Congress ought to put a stop to it for good. Bill, I've always been a little torn on this because I've seen these, in some cases, these district judges rule on the side of Republicans and implemented these TROs, and I've supported the policies behind some of these TROs being implemented, but it does seem like they're being abused at this point. Your thoughts, sir?
Abused in what way? Because I'm curious about, because everything that Grassley was saying there, what I heard was, I don't like that they're stopping what I want Trump to do. I didn't hear anything that seemed to come at it from more of an academic. He tried to, more of an academic side. But the bottom underlying thread in his entire statements there, his entire writing, was they should let Trump do what he wants. That's really where he was going with this. And so is that really the issue? That we just want our executive to be able to rule through executive order? Is that how the executive needs to make policy? And is it the executive's role to make that policy? Because last time I checked, Chuck's part of Congress. And if Chuck wanted to change this, Chuck can change this. But he's got to do the Congress thing, the job that he was elected for. And what I'm hearing in his writing,
which is what he's doing, introducing this bill.
And what I'm reading in the writing, though, is that, well, Congress isn't doing what it should do. And so we just want to change what the judges have the ability to do so that the president has more executive power. So he's basically advocating, what I'm hearing there, is for Congress to have less power and for the judges to have less power and for the executive to have more power. He wants to change the balance of
brings
power.
up, though, that in some of these cases with these TROs, parties aren't even involved in the lawsuit, are involved in the decision that comes from these judges.
Yeah, but again, that's ideas.
So you have a temporary restraining order from a district judge that affects the entire nation and is in some cases affecting parties not even involved in the lawsuit.
Yeah, but I think that happens on a lot of different restraining orders. There were things that, if we can go back to abortion cases, there are restraining orders that can impact individuals that aren't even part of the lawsuit.
Right, and he brings that up there with the mifepristone.
Yeah.
And he shows that the Democrats got really frustrated with that and talked about the, quote, perilous consequences, unquote, resulting from a district judge's move to block mifepristone. You guys, he's pointing out, you guys got frustrated when it was being done to you. Now you're using it against our guy. It's time to restrain these TROs.
See, the thing for me is that I disagree with the idea that now you guys are using it. I disagree with, this is where I disagree with this idea, is that we, the American public, have decided to politicize the judiciary. Because when I was growing up, we didn't talk about who nominated the judge. We knew there were judges that were more liberal and conservative, but now we self-identify the judge based on who they're nominated, and we discount them and their rulings and their ability to run an entire case or even be on the bench based on who nominated them. Like if you come up and hear something that someone says, an Obama-appointed judge, I'm guessing at least 50% of our audience will discount that person's ability to even be a judge in the first place, regardless of what the ruling is. Because they heard Obama-appointed judge, they are going to discount their ability in any way, shape, or form. And there are portions of our audience that do the same thing with Trump or Bush-appointed judge. And that's what we have done as a body politic. We have decided
I think you're too far kind to say we.
Yeah.
Bill, you could trace that all the way back to Mr. Ted Kennedy and Robert Bork.
Yeah, and what
That's the first time it ever turned in that way. In the most part, the grilling of Supreme Court judges didn't take place prior to that. It was, if you remember, Scalia getting up, smoking a cigar, or a pipe, and they had a conversation, and then pretty much everyone voted him through. It was really, are you just competent enough as a judge to be determined to be a U.S. Supreme Court? Now it's about driving an agenda through the courts. That happened first with Robert Bork and the treatment by Ted Kennedy.
Yeah, but I think we've got horse apiece on many sides of that.
Well, now you can. Yeah, now
well, no,
you could say we all do it now.
Yeah, but
it
forward.
First started with Robert F.
Yeah,
Kennedy.
I'm
not Robert F. Kennedy. Sorry, Ted Kennedy.
I'd have to go back and look and see if I would agree on the idea of on where Bork started. But you're right, it did start to politicize there. But even then, doesn't mean it's necessarily right, nor does it mean that Grassley's solution is needed. So even if it is, all of us over the course of decades have decided to and I'm talking about using the royal we, have decided to politicize the judiciary. That's on us.
But
and now we're coming in and wanting these changes.
What do you do with the fact that, and Bill's got to take these phone calls. We got phone lines coming in. By the way, you're welcome to join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. What do you do with the fact that President Biden faced 14 of these TROs throughout his entire 4-year term? And in the first 2 months of Donald Trump's administration, you have 15 universal TROs taking place. What do you do with that?
How about you be president instead of being king? I mean, that's my first blush on that. Is the idea that there are so many temporary restraining orders, to me, is not an indication of the judiciary overreaching, because the judiciary cannot start a case or advocate anything on their own. This would have to be based on actions somebody else takes, and those actions are the president. And we've talked about it. Many of these things that he's doing through executive order should probably be done through Congress based on how things are set up. We've acknowledged on the station here that he cannot dissolve the Department of Education without going through Congress. There are other things. USAID, very questionable about being able to dissolve that organization fully without going through Congress based on how it's set up. And so I think that's the question, is can the executive, is what the courts are dealing with, can the executive necessarily rule through executive order, or does it have to be done through Congress? How does that work?
And there's other text messages that see it's Trump that's causing these TROs. I see the other side. I think the left has found a way in order to throw wrenches into Donald Trump's agenda. They use these judges that are oftentimes in districts that have nothing to do with the parties involved in these lawsuits. Chris Murray explained that last week with regards to the removal, the deportations of these Venezuelan gang members that's taking place. Didn't even take place in the district where these gang members are being held. They did it in Washington, D.C. So they find these favorable judges. They implement these universal temporary restraining orders, and it's an effort to stop the Trump agenda, not necessarily because the president's doing anything unconstitutional.
But that was one of the claims back when we were doing the 2020 stolen election thing. One of the claims from the Eastman crowd was that we need to do X, Y, and Z because we need to get it in front of a judge that I believe who wanted to file in Texas or somewhere in that area because the district was going to be ruled over by Clarence Thomas. And so they were specifically looking for
Judge
something.
shopping.
Yeah. So again, both sides. So again, both sides are doing this, and I don't think that because that happens.
If we're admitting though that they do this and both sides do it, then is it something that needs to be addressed because it's just a tool to drive an agenda, not actually achieve some type of constitutional clarity?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so in any way, shape, or form, because this is how we are playing the game. And I think that Grassley is doing the thing like blowing up the filibuster, is not understanding the unintended consequences of what he's trying to do. Does Grassley really think, because what'll happen is, if he does, in my mind, if he starts taking away and starts limiting the idea of universal temporary restraining orders, and again, they're temporary and we can argue over those ideas, but if they're overreaching, if they don't go all the way across the country and they only deal in little tiny pockets, then you are going to have different judges with different temporary restraining orders. You could have, let's just say something.
Hence the need for appeals.
But I know, but what you're trying to do, normally temporary restraining order, is trying to pause everything so it can go to appeal and be clean, rather than having the courts trying to say, well, this one over here was right and this one is wrong and this one is kind of right, rather than having to balance 3, 4, 5 different opinions on a particular issue that could be federal. That's what the idea is on the universal temporary restraining order, is trying to pause it so that we can get a universal read, so you don't have this popping up in 2, 3, or 4 cases, because once you have those divergent rulings, you've got a real problem. It becomes much more difficult to untangle them. I think that's what they're going with, and I don't think Grassley's idea solved this in any way, shape, or form.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. Jack in Wyoming. Good morning, Jack. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. What do you think about Chuck Grassley's proposal, the temporary restraining orders, the fact that Donald Trump's facing a lot more than anybody else has? Your thoughts, sir?
Well, my thoughts go before that. Aren't the immigration laws made by our Congress, yes or no?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, then how can you tell the executive who ran on it, number one, that he can't do that? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, separation of powers is muddy waters. It is that. But let me ask you this. Could a federal district judge stop Harry Truman from dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I mean, what? Who runs this country? Not district court judges, that's for sure.
I'm not sure. Could you maybe come up with an example that would be outside a time of war, because the executive is granted more powers under wartime conditions than something else?
That's right.
I'm not certain it's analogous at that point. Can we find an example that would be outside of the war powers time?
No, Billy, I absolutely follow you. I know we didn't declare war on Mexico.
Oh yeah,
on Mexico.
Yeah.
I understand that, but it is an invasion. I mean, it's borderline war.
But is it now? Talk to me, Jack, a little bit about if the Congress was the one that made the immigration laws, why shouldn't Congress be involved in creating some of the things like, the idea of giving Trump the power of the Alien and Enemies Act? Why couldn't they make some sort of a declaration? Why couldn't they move through to make it appear, or actually give it more legitimacy?
Well, I'm not sure that Trump isn't entitled to the Immigration Act. I don't know that it needs. I think that's already in place, Billy.
But doesn't it need to be? Don't we need to have some sort of a war that's going on? I'm not certain that you can draw the okay.
You're talking about the Alien Enemies Act?
The Alien Enemies
then
Act.
it has to do with incursion and the definition of an incursion.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Chris Murray got into this.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it falls into this.
I mean, how do you define it? I mean, we have one. It is an incursion. Just because the Democrats let it go by doesn't make it legal.
But the incursion would have to be something like this is something that would be, there has to be intent.
Yeah,
and
he's talking about the cartels, not somebody just walking over the border, but the particular cartels are acting in an adversarial way to the United States, have incurred onto our property, brought drugs, killing Americans. I think it falls under the definition. And the fact that this was lost last week and all the signal stuff, but in the threat assessment that came from Tulsi Gabbard on threats that are facing America, now for the first time you have drug cartels listed under that threat assessment.
Yeah, I think that's, I understand the idea that they are a threat, but I think that it's stretching the idea of an organized incursion when you're getting to thing like the drug cartels, because that is an illegal organization. The mob runs that way. There are lots of other organizations and drug dealers run that way.
So it should be handled with RICO, is what you're saying.
Maybe, but again, it's the problem is because they operate outside of the country and then come into the country. The idea of identifying them as this being an incursion, I have a little bit of a problem with, because what they're bringing into the country is in and of itself illegal. And so that's the part that I don't see it as necessarily an invading force from another legitimate country. The idea that it is I guess if you could say,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
I'm not even sure it's guerrilla warfare. Yeah, I'm also not sure it's even guerrilla war. That's why I have a problem with the language in it. But again, I'm inaccurate and unclear on this one, Jack. I've got kind of a horse in both sides.
Somebody has to stop this these restraining orders from these federal benches because they have liberal judges on them. This has got to be stopped. But plain
Jack,
and simple.
What I worry about that is the fact that you say because they have liberal judges. Would you argue that if we roll back the clock 2-3 years and Joe Biden comes out with his executive order on student loan forgiveness, and we had a judge that ruled against it and would put a temporary restraining on that, you wouldn't say, well, we've got to stop these conservative judges because they're not letting the executive do what they have. I have a feeling you would be happy with the judge. And what I'm worried about is we are deciding whether or not the courts are legitimate based on our own personal politics. That's what I worry about in this situation.
No, that's true.
But would it be better for our country if we didn't have this back and forth taking place by these district judges? Jack, I sure appreciate the call. Give us a phone call. Jack's line's open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You know, after a long morning of debating with Bill, where I love to go to lunch, visit my friends at the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado, locally owned and operated. Yes, they do. And sometimes there's some mornings. Locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. I love this restaurant. It's home-style cooking worth going out for, with 8 locations all along the I-25 corridor, including out in Lakewood and in Inglewood. There's sure to be one near you. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? Everything's made from scratch. Listen to some of this, guys. Roasted turkey breast, mom's meatloaf, grilled salmon. How about homemade soups, great salads, and delicious mashed potatoes? They've got daily specials. They've got senior discounts. And for all you Maha lovers out there, this is quality, locally sourced food. Better save room even for their dessert at the Black Eyed Pea. They have this mile-high 1-pound chocolate cake. Put it out there. My kids all grab forks and dive in. It's absolutely incredible. Make your dinner party, rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, or company event a success with Black Eyed Pea Catering. And no matter what the occasion, Black Eyed Pea gift cards are always great. Whether you purchase them for your spouse, birthday favors, or holiday presents, they have you covered. I love everything about this restaurant. It's one of those few restaurants where all three generations can enjoy it. Grandma, grandpa, us, and then the kids as well. They all will find something to love. I know you'll enjoy it as well. So keep it in Colorado and visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. All right, we'll continue with your phone calls and texts. Is it time for these temporary restraining orders being made universal by judges to go? Have the left found a tool to throw a wrench into the president's agenda? Or is this an important check on the executive? Phone calls and text lines are open. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Chuck Grassley introducing a bill today to try to put some restrictions on these district judges from implementing universal temporary restraining orders. And that's what I don't get is why they all of a sudden have the power when they didn't do this prior to 1963 that he points out of implementing universal temporary restraining orders, which often involves parties that even aren't even part of the lawsuit. It's just so broad that it essentially stops other people from being able to operate. Seems unconstitutional to me. It's also been waged a lot more against Donald Trump than any previous judge. So Chuck Grassley stepping in, saying if the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't get their district judges in line, Congress is going to act. Bill, your thoughts?
I just want to know why President Trump can't be president, because a lot of the things that he wants to accomplish, a lot of things that are facing the temporary restraining orders from the courts have to do with his executive orders. And I've kind of come to this a few weeks ago that, in my opinion, President Trump is acting like a king because he can't act like a president. So far, we have not seen him be able to get legislation or move it through Congress. In fact, even on the most recent budget legislation, the House and the Senate are talking about how they are going to try and meet two different standards. Meaning that the example would be if you and your significant other are coming up with a budget for your house and your household income, one of you is going to say, I think we should be able to spend $5,000 a month. And one of you is going to say, I think we should spend $2,000 a month. And both of you are going to put together proposals. And then you're going to talk about how there's an agreement between the budget. No, not at all. But they're both willing right now to set completely different guidelines and then push the legislation forward to reach their own guidelines and then act as if they have done something. That's a problem.
Can't you just blame the Democrats in the Senate for this? Because to pass anything, you got to get to 60. There's what, 53 Republicans, 51 Republicans in the Senate.
But isn't that the design of our founding fathers? I mean, this is what I find it very interesting.
But you're blaming Donald Trump, saying he's got to do this all by executive orders. Well, the Democrats in the Senate aren't going to allow a single thing that Donald Trump wants to do.
He's got to do it based on being a president. I understand that, but if we go back to Barack Obama, that was Mitch McConnell who said the GOP was now the party of no in the Senate. Whatever Barack Obama wanted to do, the idea was no.
Executive orders, were you claiming he wasn't being presidential?
Yes, I did. I claimed that he was overstepping his bounds. But the other part is he did get Obamacare through. He did do the thing. But again, he got it through. And so when we sit there and say, oh my gosh, there are too many Democrats in Congress, especially in the Senate, and we view that as a bug, not a feature, that's a problem, especially from the group that I hear all the time talking about the Constitution and the intent of the Founding Fathers. The intent of the Founding Fathers wasn't to give the person who won the White House carte blanche to do whatever they want. They had a king. They left a king. The reason we have Congress and the judiciary is three co-equal branches is to prevent the kingdom.
Not co-equal. They have checks on each other, but they're not co-equal.
Yes and no. I mean, again, I'm using it colloquially because of how we understand it, okay? They're not necessarily co-equal, but they do have checks and balances on each other. So, but that's the idea of them being equal. I'm leaning into the idea of checks and balances. But they didn't want someone that was in the White House to be able to rule through things like an executive order. That's why you had to get it through Congress. So if these ideas are so good, get them through Congress. I understand the makeup isn't that amenable to what you want to do.
Yeah,
but I'd say the same thing to Democrats.
In your case with Barack Obama, you had Republicans that were willing to come over. Thank you, John McCain. Democrats don't do that. Democrats don't come over, and they are lockstep in their effort to try to stop Donald Trump in any possible way.
I'm pretty sure during the previous vote, just on the budget, there were some Democrats that voted in order to get some things through. Democrats do vote all the time, and the idea is you need to. And the whole reason it was set up that way is so that you're trying to get more closer to the middle of the road. That the extremes don't necessarily have the power governing, but both political parties have allowed the extreme to have an outweighed voice.
But you don't see these judges acting politically at all. These TRO judges.
Oh, and sometimes. Yes, sure. I can get to that. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think that invalidates the need for them. And if we're worried about them being in these districts and that they're overreaching across the country, then fine, erase the districts. Erase the districts and just
Or
say the federal courts have ruling over the entire country at that point.
Just say you can't do these universal TROs.
No, just erase the districts.
It has to involve the parties involved.
But hang on a sec,
That's
though.
all.
But why then, if we're talking about it being federal and we don't want them, and we're saying they're only bringing these rulings in these small federal districts across the country, but aren't they federal? Isn't the federalization the idea of something that goes over the entire nation? We broke it up based on districts in part because of caseload, not because we only wanted judges in the South to only rule on stuff that happened in the South. That's a state court issue. That's not a federal court issue. If it's federal, we did this based on caseload. But if you want to just say that federal courts should be able to rule on federal things, then erase all the districts. Erase all the districts and let it be a free-for-all, and let's see where everybody files in. Because
I think that's what they're doing. They're essentially taking these districts and making them universal.
But they are supposed to be. They aren't necessarily, because they're federal judges.
But you're making decisions about parties that aren't involved in the case itself. So, you know who would help clear this all up? Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everybody involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than just being a great guy with solid values, Dan's a real winner in the courtroom. He's the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, here's his phone number. You ready? 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551. Or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLISLaw.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So Senator Chuck Grassley today introducing a bill that he hopes will end these universal temporary restraining orders. Now, Bill, your thoughts on whether or not you think the Senate will pass it? Democrats have raised concerns about this type of stuff in the past, he points out.
No, not at all. Not in the least.
It's going to be partisan in Congress? I thought
Yeah, I
Donald
know.
Trump needs to be more presidential and get this thing done.
Yeah, he needs to get some stuff done, and so figure out what would be amenable to both sides, what would be palatable,
This
what would make
should
sure,
be.
and then you go
the
through.
Judicial Relief
Yeah.
Clarification Act should be, but the Democrats won't sign it.
Well, but
Or
again,
vote
here's
for
the
it.
idea, though. If this was a Democrat in the White House, this was under the Biden administration, there's no way the Republicans would come across the same idea. So this is the core problem of what we have. It's not that we don't want to work with each other. We want to do everything to prevent us from working with each other, and then we get mad when things don't work. Yes, this is a self-inflicted wound. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Deal with it, guys. You're in Congress. You put on your big boy pants and get to work. Yes, do the job you were elected to do. You ran, you asked for votes, you said you were going to do this and you wanted this job. Do the job. That's it. At the end of the day, do your job. If you think this is what we need to do, do your job.
Democrats will not support this because they found a way to throw a wrench into not the Republicans, Donald Trump's agenda.
If Trump would go through Congress, they couldn't do this. If he'd just go through Congress and stop issuing executive orders, just like Biden and his student loan debt relief.
Wait,
if he would
so
have just
hold
gone
on.
regularly.
You think that the Democrats in Congress that are blocking him in the courts are somehow going to support his agenda in Congress? No. This is all politics.
The Democrats in
Bill.
Congress aren't in the
All
courts.
right, you're listening to
Two different
Jeff
people.
and Bill.
Denver's talk station, 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, March 31st, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We got an interesting story coming out of Durango. LGBTQ activist teacher and trans husband are housing a minor teen girl against the mom's wishes. The details on this are shocking. Why aren't the police doing something about this? To give us some insight on this, Lori Gilmelstein will be joining us. She's the executive director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. We'll get into that. But now it's time for news with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, 39 and cloudy on this Monday in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the rescued astronauts speaking this morning, Sonny Williams.
I'm just glad that they're involved and they take notice. And, our situation, I think I've mentioned before, maybe wasn't the perfect situation.
She's saying thank you to President Trump and Elon Musk as they return to Earth last week. I think it was last week. The U.S. Army says the bodies of 3 missing soldiers have been found in Lithuania. Crews are still searching for a 4th soldier. The soldiers went missing during a training mission last week. The M88 Hercules armored recovery vehicle they were in was lifted out of a swamp earlier today. They were based in Fort Stewart, Georgia. In France, French right wing, or far right, which means right, common sense, leader Marine Le Pen has been banned from running in the 2027 presidential election, convicted of embezzlement. She'll appeal. They've made all kinds of excuses, but this is what they do to conservatives and leaders fighting for the rights of French citizens. It's the EU, NATO, all the crazy new dictators in Europe. Same thing that they did to Trump. We'll see what happens there. Freed Israeli hostage Yardine Bibas with Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes on Sunday. This had to have just hurt her little heart to hear this.
If you could say something to President Trump, what would you say?
Please stop this war, and help bring all the hostages back.
And you think he can help?
I know he can help. I'm here because of Trump. I'm here only because of him.
Leslie Stahl didn't want to hear that. Antonio Gracias is working with Doge in Social Security, exposed tons of fraud last night. Illegals collecting taxpayer money, and the fact that a lot of illegals voted in 2024.
You get this form called the 766, that's the authorization, and then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number. No interview, no ID.
This is worth just reiterating. It's not people sometimes think that under the Biden administration that he was simply asleep at the switch. He wasn't asleep. No. They weren't asleep at the switch. It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state.
He had an event last night. Elon gave out 2 $1 million checks to attendees at that town hall in Green Bay. The event was created for people who signed a petition against activist judges. Elon and his group are backing Republican Supreme Court candidate Brad Schimmel ahead of Tuesday's critical Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which he called gigantic for all of us.
It was inevitable that at least a few Soros operatives would be in the audience. Give my regards to George. Say hi to George from me.
I love it. Exposing George Soros. The Colorado GOP elected a new chairperson Saturday. It's former county treasurer and volunteer fire chief Britta Horn. She says the party has no money and no specific plans in place for winning elections. So in her first 100 days, Horn plans to unify the party through fundraising, candidate recruitment, and other initiatives. Heidi Ganal, Rocky Mountain Voice, on with Jeff and Billy this morning.
Everything that could happen drama-wise did, and following up, it's still happening on all the chats. But I think the results were great. As you know, I've been a big supporter of Britta all along. I've known her for a decade, and she's just a happy warrior, you guys. She just lights up the room. Her laugh is incredibly infectious, and she just wants everybody to get along. Like, why can't we all just get along? So I think Britta is going to be a great chair. I think she's going to be inspirational, and she's going to do a good cleanup job. She's going to try and bring transparency and honesty and real talk about what we need to do to fix things in Colorado.
He wants to be in Boulder, and that means a lot to us because it is a culture change that he's brought. It's a lot like, for those of you who remember Coach Mack from late 80s, early 90s, a lot like that time when Coach Mack
was here. CU Regent Frank McNulty on with the fellas also. And Deion Sanders is now one of the highest paid coaches in college football. In 2 years, they have made a lot of money and won a lot of football games. And he signed a new 5-year, $54 million contract extension. The new deal increases his base salary to $10 million starting this season. It is 36 in Lone Tree, 37 in Thornton, 39 in Denver. The Rockies are 1-2. They have opening day coming up on Friday this week at Coors Field in Philly today at 1 o'clock.
It's going to be cold.
Is it? I
rain
didn't look at the weather.
Rain, snow chance on Friday, high of 48. I'm going to be there, and Don Sweeting, the chancellor of CCU, and I always go together and enjoy opening day. And this year he goes, why don't we just make sure we get club level so that we can go inside? And I'm like, smart idea. It worked out well.
Stinks, man.
I know, 48. I went to an opening day a few years ago the same way. Super cold outside.
I remember that one. Yeah, I hate that.
I know.
Opening day's got to be blue sky and sunshine, man. That's just not fair to those guys.
No. As a longtime Rockies observer, not necessarily a Rockies fan. No. Having rain and storms and bad weather on the opening home game for the Rockies, no, that's a harbinger of the entire season. That's just God telling you, don't get your hopes up. Don't start looking at the sunny skies and the blue skies and thinking everything's going to go well. This is going to be a train wreck just like it was last season and the season before that and the season before that and the season before that. Yes, it's just God's reminder to all Rockies fans. No. We're not in the pennant race this year, guys. Just slow your roll. Yeah, that's what it is.
Why don't we add in baseball-size hail in there?
Yes, we should. Yes.
For all yes. the fans. Hey, it's helmet day on opening day.
There we go. Helmet day on opening day.
Protect your lids all season.
Yes, exactly.
All right, the T-Wolves at the Nuggets tomorrow. Flames at the Avalanche tonight. DU keeps on winning in the college hockey tournament. And the Final Four, just in case you missed it, all 4 number 1 seeds in the Final Four coming up this weekend. All right, Jeff and Billy, continue.
Something about you two. I don't know what it is. I mean, I woke up one day and it's like, wait a minute, this little son of a is entertaining as hell. And so even though he's full of crap,
I deserve that.
It's just the way he's wired. I mean, you guys work good together.
Oh, man, Barney, the best. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's going to be a cool, wet week of weather here in Denver, a continuation of the wet weather that developed late last week and over the weekend. It'll be partly cloudy to cloudy today. We will reach the low to mid-60s. Watch for morning fog. There will be a little bit of light shower activity developing late tonight, lows in the mid to upper 30s. Mostly cloudy Tuesday. Showers likely. Rain, snow mixed, highs 50s. A few rain and snow showers Tuesday night, a low near 30. Wednesday into Thursday, a chance of rain and snow showers and cool. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Wild story coming out of Durango. This reported by the Daily Wire. An LGBTQ activist teacher in Colorado and her trans-identifying male husband are housing a 17-year-old girl who identifies as a boy. Police say they are unable to intervene to bring the teen home to her mother. Joanne Smotherman, a former math teacher at Durango High School, took the teen, one of her students, into her Durango home in December when the girl left home after a fight with her mother. Joanne is married to Vivian Smotherman, a trans-identifying man who ran for Colorado State Senate as a Democrat last year. The teen's mother, Cynthia Stein, has gone to the Smotherman's home and attempted unsuccessfully to take her daughter back. She called in the police, but the officers who responded to the scene said they would not force the teen to go home. According to the police report and body cam footage that's been obtained by the Daily Wire. The situation is the culmination of months of outside influences on the vulnerable teen, the mother has told the Daily Wire. Well, to give us some insight on this case is Lori Gilmelstein. She's the executive director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. Lori, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, guys. Thanks for having me on this morning.
This is a fascinating case. Now, I guess the teenager's now 18 years old, but this all happened when they were 17. The police showing up when she was 17, but going, look, she doesn't want to leave. Can you give us a sense of how this case all came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the executive director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network, and one of the tools that we have for parents and educators and students is our incident reporting tool that's found on our website at coloradoparents.org. And we received an incident report from Cindy Stein in November, indicating that her family at the time was really having a difficult experience with this former teacher at Durango High School, who actually started befriending the daughter in her junior year. So I think it's really important to know that her daughter has multiple diagnoses: autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression, and there were many variables happening in her junior year. Her mother was diagnosed with cancer, was going through very aggressive treatments, and it was a very difficult time for their family. And during that time, Joanne Smotherman really befriended and kind of took under her wing the daughter and really started to encourage her to think about her gender and if she was born in the wrong body and things of that nature. And Cindy's daughter started really questioning that concept. And Cindy wanted to give her some of the freedom of just exploring, typical teen stuff, and didn't quite realize how significant the adult involvement outside of the home was in terms of kind of coercing and influencing her daughter. We have evidence of the Access Healthcare school counselor reaching out to her daughter on text messages, personal text messages, helping her to take her parents off medical records, helping her to secure an apartment, all while she's a minor, all with no contact to the parents. And then in November, there was a situation where her daughter basically sent a text message, so just really out of the blue, and said, I don't just think I am a boy, I am a boy. And mom responded in the text, wow, just kind of taken aback. And her daughter was really upset and said, I can't believe this is the way you would react. And then they were having some conversation, and mom really just wanted to kind of get her out of the environment and bring her up to Denver, spend some time with family. And she said, let's pack our things and go. And at that moment, her daughter kicked the screen out of her bedroom and ran away. And so that is when we got contacted by Cindy in November. And now this story has just progressed for months. So she ran away. The person that came on scene was Joanne Smotherman when we finally found her. Police allowed Joanne to speak to her, but not her mother. It's really interesting to see how all these systems are playing against a parent's rights and the authority to direct their child's upbringing and education. And one of the things that happened is Jocelyn ended up coming back home, and things were pretty tense in the home environment. And one of the agreements that they had was that if she felt unsafe, she could go to one of two friends' homes. And that was decided upon. It was a formal agreement. And on December 21st, her daughter said, "I'm leaving." And Cindy said, "I'm not going to stand in your way," thinking she's going to go to one of these two places. And what ended up happening is she went to Joanne Smotherman and Vivian Smotherman, who is a trans-identifying woman, to their home at the age of 17. Now, it's very important to note that Cindy did not give any permission for these people to house her daughter. She was harboring this child. We filed a runaway report. The deputy in the La Plata Sheriff County originally on the phone shared with us that he strongly believed that this was harboring a child. And the next thing we know, the police stopped communicating for 3 days with us, and then indicated that they tried to reach out by phone, but for some reason it couldn't go through and they couldn't connect with Cindy. And then we started some exchanging, and we realized that the deputy had actually taken off the runaway and said, "We're not going to consider her a runaway, and we're not going to do anything about it." And we have all this documentation, very detailed email communications with the La Plata Sheriff's Office. And then finally, we ended up writing back, we're based on your recommendations, Cindy's going to retrieve her daughter. And we organized to retrieve her daughter at the Smotherman's home on January 5th. When she arrived at the house, she parked in the street. She never went onto their property, and she contacted Joanne by phone. That reporting is on our X account. You can see it where Joanne calls and says, I'd really like you to have my daughter pack her things and come out willingly. And Joanne responded, "I'm calling Onyx's attorney." And I do want people to realize that they've been fundraising to file emancipation paperwork for this child, funding to change this child's gender markers, all while this child was a minor. And 911 was called at that moment, and it was just completely downhill in terms of the La Plata County Sheriff's Department's response. The body cam footage is also viewable on our X account at CPN Colorado.
We're talking with Lori Gilmanstein. She's the executive director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. Now, with regards to the teen's mother, Cynthia Stein, was there ever any claims of abuse? I'm trying to understand why these other folks, the former math teacher and her husband, would claim the right to be able to house somebody that's not their child if there weren't any actual forms of abuse taking place by the child's mother, Cynthia Stein.
Absolutely not. No signs of abuse. CPS, when her daughter ran away in November, actually did an investigation, and that was the organization that said her daughter should be home and making sure that they were working towards supporting the family. And so there was no evidence of abuse. They are lying. I've seen on Joanne's Facebook page that she actually led people to believe that her daughter was being abused. She's not being abused. Joanne is lying.
So, I mean, is this teacher the article says a former math teacher? Because I can't imagine the school district would want this happening regardless of what's taking place. I mean, if you have, let's say somebody was being abused, right? Okay. Well, there's plenty of other options other than a teacher taking the kid in. Like, that just seems wholly inappropriate. So is Joanne Smotherman still with Durango High School?
Well, let me give you a little bit of background. So the Smothermans, up until 2021, lived in Texas on a farm that they ended up foreclosing on. And Joanne was employed at a high school there, Bastrop High School, and for some reason, we don't know why, she was not renewed. And then in 2021, they moved to Durango. When they got to Durango, she was employed by Durango High School as a math teacher, and that is how Cindy's daughter came in contact with her. And she was not renewed this year, and we tried to Cora that information, and the school would not release it. So we're not sure what the conditions were for Joanne to not be renewed at Durango High School as a math teacher, especially when we know that teachers are definitely in deep need. But I will say that she's actively teaching, from my understanding, at the Durango Adult Education Center. And this is where things get really interesting. One of the things that Joanne encouraged Cindy's daughter to do her junior year was drop out of high school and get her GED instead at the Durango Adult Education Center. Now, at the time, again, remember, Cindy's going through aggressive cancer treatments. Her daughter is very unhappy at school. And Cindy thinks, well, maybe this is a good idea, right? So Jocelyn ended up dropping out of high school at Joanne's encouragement, going to Durango Adult Education Center, where Joanne works and currently works. And I do want people to realize that Joanne also advertises that she is a tutor for middle school math. And we are very concerned because of the pattern of behavior. And I will also share that since Tuesday, we've had a couple of people reach out confidentially to the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network through our incident reporting tool to say that this is a pattern of behavior. So we've had 2 people reach out, and I think it's very concerning. And I just can't understand that any adult would have the authority to come in and just take your child without your permission, house them, and that the police will not help you get your child back. That is called kidnapping.
We're talking with Lori Gimmelstein. She's the executive director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. What's hard for me to understand on this one is it seems so clear you have a child in crisis, so diagnosed with autism, ADHD, eating disorder, depression, anxiety. I understand teenagers go through challenges with parents. That happens. I remember feeling like I wanted to leave my family at one point and find somebody else to live with during some of the, harder times that you go through as a teenager. But then to allow law enforcement to just simply allow this to happen, there's so many red flags here that the teacher was a former teacher of the student. You have transgenderism taking place within the couple's house. If there are real concerns about this kid, and again, you brought it up you reminded us that there's no charges against the mom. So Cynthia's not facing anything. There's plenty of other options: youth homes, foster families, all of this that could be a good landing place for this child if there are very serious issues between the mother and the daughter, which aren't taking place. There's no recorded incidents. So why are the police in this particular area allowing this to happen?
That's a really good question for Deputy Thurber with the La Plata County Sheriff's Office. It's very alarming when you watch the body cam footage. This was coming from a 911 call to get sheriffs on scene. And we have the recordings of all the communications that led up to this. And I'll tell you, it took a couple hours to really get a deputy on scene. And when you, just in your mind, you call 911, right? You say, there's an emergency. Someone has my child without my permission. I've asked them to have my child come out of the home. They're refusing to let my child come out of the home. In addition, they said they're going to call an attorney. They have no rights. They have no authority to this child. And you, as a police officer, when you go on scene, what is your job? Your job is to investigate, verify. And what they did was they went in, they never separated the daughter from the teacher. They said, you're good, right? You're good. And she said, yeah, I'm good. And he's like, that's all I need to hear. It's all I need to hear. Thanks for letting me check some boxes. And then the 2 deputies went outside and they mocked the mother. They said, oh, now we got to go down and we've got to, talk to the mother and, she's going to freak out. And then they're laughing And they basically just went down and they said, no, we're not going to take her out. She's fine. They took the statement of the Smothermans, who are harboring Cindy's daughter, over Cindy. And I'm just so alarmed at the failure in the system.
We're talking with Lori Gimmelstein. She's the executive director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network about an article the Daily Wire put out. LGBTQ activist teacher and trans husband house a minor teen girl in Colorado against the mom's wishes. Now, the mom, Cynthia Stein, has tried the criminal route. How about a civil route? Obviously, there's damages that could be argued for in this particular case. Has she tried suing the folks that have taken her daughter?
That was actually our first avenue. One of the things, we're focused on solutions here with helping our families that submit incident reports. And so we did actually attempt to go the legal route back in November. But the response that we got from attorneys was, well, she's going to be 18 in March. And so there just isn't really enough time. Now, I will say that there's definitely cause around the harboring and the failure of the La Plata County Sheriff's Office to not enforce the law there. And we're demonstrating kind of patterns of behavior of the Smothermans. So I do think that there is the likelihood of, potential legal. But again, that costs a tremendous amount of money. And, that's one of the things we hear all the time. People say, well, why aren't they suing? Why aren't they suing? And I'll tell you why, because it's just so expensive. Families can't afford to sue. And when the systems that are in place are failing them, the school, the CPS, the police department, what is the parent to do? I mean, this should be alarming to everybody across Colorado. And I'll be quite honest, we also have about 28 other families that are navigating this very, very similar to what Cindy is navigating here in Colorado. And one of the things that we're doing to really help engage people and educate people is we're hosting the Rocky Mountain Summit on Sunday on safeguarding children from gender-affirming treatment. And we are bringing in the best of the best on this. If you're curious, you want to learn more about this, I encourage you to get tickets online at coloradoparents.org. But that's this Sunday. We're bringing in Deputy Counsel Candace Jackson, who's Deputy Counsel for Trump's U.S. Department of Education. We're bringing renowned child psychiatrist Dr. Miriam Grossman, who has been engaged in what is happening around gender ideology long before any of us knew what was happening. She's the best-selling author of Lost in Transnation. We have Dr. Lear Sapir, who is a data analyst with the Manhattan Institute. We even have Colorado pediatrician Dr. Michelle Stanford coming. This event is actually approved for continuing medical education for physicians. It's first event in Colorado where we're talking about not gender affirming. We need to look at the harms. And we also have a family impact panel that is joining us for kind of our second half of the summit, talking about the impact. So we're bringing in the first U.S. whistleblower, Jamie Reed, from a pediatric gender clinic. She'll be joining the panel to talk about the harm she's seen in over 1,500 patients she's served. We also have, as many of you know, Erin Lee joining us. Her daughter, Chloe, was transitioned in an after-school art club. So in 90 minutes, Chloe was convinced that she was transgender, and Chloe Lee will be on the panel as well. It's the first time she's speaking in public about what happened to her. She's now 16 and thriving. And we also are flying in a Florida parent, January Littlejohn. Many of you may have seen January at President Trump's State of the Union address. She was honored by President Trump, and she is a fierce parent advocate. Her daughter was transitioned behind her family's back as well. So that event is this Sunday, 2:30 to 5:30 at the Inverness Hilton, and we encourage people to get tickets. This is an event you do not want to miss.
We're talking with Lori Gimmelstein. She's the executive director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network about an LGBTQ activist teacher and trans husband who are housing a minor teen girl in Colorado against the mom's wishes. Now, Lori, you just brought up, you said 28 other families are dealing with this. My mind went to the Jeffco Columbine situation where the student now lives with the teacher in California. Are you saying that there's 28 other families where the kids are possibly living with the teacher?
Not necessarily living with the teacher, but 28 families that are navigating outside influences coercing their children to believe that they are transgender. These are not kids that came up with this concept themselves or have any historical evidence of having gender dysphoria. So these are children that had normal childhood development. We know in true gender dysphoria that children show signs of gender dysphoria at very early ages, age 2, 3, and predominantly in males. And what we're seeing is an explosion in girls, especially in middle school girls, identifying as being transgender. And there's a lot of issues around how is this happening. It's almost as if it is a just kind of this craze where we've got comprehensive sex education teaching children that gender is fluid, that they can be anything they want to be. They can be a boy, they can be a girl, they can switch. And it's very confusing to a young child who's, does not have the executive functioning skills to really concretely think about these terms. And we have practices in schools where they are affirming a child's gender transition at the child's request and hiding it from the parents. And we have evidence of these practices. We're actually working with Parents Defending Education on filing an Office of Civil Rights complaint against multiple school districts in the state of Colorado for this practice and against House Bill 241039, non-legal name changes, which Democrat Governor Polis signed into law last April. And what that law does is it makes this practice legal. So we literally have schools that are hiding a child's gender transition, changing their name, changing their pronouns. They actually have paperwork where they say, if the parent is not supportive, how are we going to essentially hide it from the parent? They allow the child to use the locker rooms, the restrooms that align with however they identify. And so many families are filing incident reports because their kids have stopped drinking water at school because they don't want to go to the bathroom, because they don't want to have to be in the bathroom with a member of the opposite sex. And I cannot tell you, Jeff, how heartbreaking this is to me. And I think for a long time, people are afraid to say anything about it, but there is a kind of this activist movement where people are using what I would consider the TQ shields. I don't include LGB in that at all. I genuinely believe the transgender queer shield creates a victim status. And I do genuinely believe that's what Joanne and Vivian Smotherman are hiding behind as well, because nobody is willing to call out when something is wrong because they're afraid they're going to be called anti-LGBTQ. That is not it is not anti anything to want to protect a child.
Lori Gimmelstein, Executive Director of the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network, joining the Jeff and Bill Show live. What was the friction point between the student and the family, to your understanding? What were they fighting over? What was the disagreement that kept popping up that you know? What do we know about that?
There really was no disagreement. The daughter, we have evidence that the daughter was working with the counselor and Joanne Smotherman since at least November. They got her a separate phone from the one that her mom had.
But she was seeking counseling for what? I mean, I understand you're running kind of far afield here. I'm looking at what the friction is. The friction between the family and her.
Yeah, the counseling, again, in the state of Colorado, you can seek counseling at the age of 12 without your parents knowing. So Cindy has no idea why she was seeing this counselor. And the friction was actually on the day that Jocelyn basically said in a text message, I don't just think I'm a boy, I am a boy. And they were having some discussions around that. Now, I call that parenting. I have differing opinions with my kids every day, right? Because I'm parenting them. I'm helping guide their development, helping guide their upbringing, and helping them make good choices. Kids make bad choices all the time. And Cindy was trying to protect her daughter. But I will say Cindy was willing, and we have evidence of her saying, I'm willing to sit down and talk with you. Let's get support together. Let's navigate this issue together. And there's this kind of outside influence telling Jocelyn that's abuse. That's abuse. It's not abuse to parent.
Where was the agreement, or when was that made about 2 safe houses or safe locations of friends' houses that they were going to be able to go to? When did that agreement come to between the parent and the student?
That's a really good question, Bill. So in November, when Cindy's daughter ran away the first time, we on scene when she was found, this is 24 hours, Cindy had no idea where her daughter was. She was terrified. She didn't know, if she had been hurt or was with somebody dangerous. She didn't know what was going on. And when they found her, Joanne Smotherman came on scene, and the next thing you know, Jocelyn was saying that she felt suicidal. So CPS got engaged, and CPS felt strongly that the home was a safe place for her. And it did an investigation. And what they did was they created this plan. And so there was no evidence of abuse from parents. CPS was super supportive of her going home. They made some agreements. And one of those agreements was, in the event that Cindy's daughter's feeling uncomfortable or unsafe or whatever it might be, that she could go to one of 2 homes that they had agreed upon. And so on December 21st, when Jocelyn said she was leaving, Cindy said, "You can go. I'm not going to stand in your way." There had been a lot of tension that whole month between the family. Everybody felt like they were walking on eggshells around her daughter, and she was just kind of disengaging and texting on this other phone that her mom didn't know about with Joanne and this counselor. And then, she leaves, and she doesn't go to one of the 2 approved places that the CPS agreement acknowledged. So when we learned that, and we learned that she was at this Smotherman's house, we reported it as a runaway situation, and we asked the La Plata County Sheriff's Department to investigate and retrieve her daughter, and they didn't. And not only did they not do that, they just said, "We're not going to do anything." And we ended up doing a retrieval attempt ourselves, and Joanne would not allow Cindy's daughter to leave.
Yeah, I appreciate all of that. And see, this is the problem that I'm having getting my head around the story, is that I'm not hearing any party or in the conversation we're having right now really be good at outlining what the friction is that occurred, because you've said a couple of times there wasn't any friction, everything was going fine, but she ran away before she ran away the second time when the police got involved. There was something going on. She was seeing a psychologist. You just enumerated that the family was walking around on eggshells. There was a friction point. And I believe that we're not, in our conversation today, and we may not be able to, are able to deal with what that core friction point was and why. And have a feeling if we got to that kernel, we would have a whole lot more understanding as far as why the relationship between the parents and the daughter fell apart for whatever reason. And even if that is a transgender feeling by the daughter, now son, that could be fair based on the friction point. But until we find out what that friction point is, I think that we're getting a lot of other
I don't think it matters. I don't care. I mean, why the hell is a teacher involved in this? Why does this kid have a separate phone that the parents don't know about? Why is a kid staying with a teacher, a former teacher? That's totally inappropriate. I don't care what the friction is.
No.
You have plenty of other options, but these teachers should not be involved in this way.
You're looking for answers that could be partially solved or at least answered by what was that original friction point. You're wanting to know why.
I don't care and that's why I asked if there was serious abuse there.
I know.
Even if there was serious abuse,
here's the thing:
it shouldn't be. The teacher shouldn't be involved this way.
You keep asking the why, and part of the answer to that is the friction point between the parent and the child. That's part of the why. And by ignoring that or just saying we don't care about it, we're never going to solve this problem. And I think that's part of the reason.
That's a deflection.
No, it's not.
I mean,
no, it's not.
Lori, go ahead. Let's let Lori have the final word.
I'm going to jump in if I can. If I can jump in, here's the friction point. Services are being provided to minor children in the state of Colorado without their parents' knowledge, consent, or involvement. And we have evidence that a lot of these services are activist-driven, just like we have activists in education, just like we have activists in medicine and in defense. We cannot just blindly trust a government system that is providing children with mental health services in a state that requires that they affirm. And this is not, again, this is a lot of influence that went on Cindy's daughter. We have plenty of evidence that she was being coerced into this thinking. And so the friction was a mom trying to parent her child and the child saying that that is not going to happen. Parents and children have friction all the time. And Jeff is right. Nobody has the authority to take your child without your permission. And that's what this story comes down to. Joanne Smotherman was harboring her daughter knowingly, and every system failed her. It doesn't matter what the friction was. It matters that Cindy has full custodial rights, never been accused of any type of abuse, or she's been accused by Joanne, but certainly not founded evidence, none, zero. I have all the paperwork that can go along with it. This teacher just blindly went in and took control over someone's
I disagree.
child's life.
I just disagree with the use of the verb took. I mean, that's the core of this as far as the conversation. I just disagree with the use of that verb.
Well,
I understand your position.
A 17-year-old has no right to be able to just pick and choose where they live.
But took is different. That's a different verb.
Oh, I disagree.
No,
All right. Well, Lori Gilmore-Stein.
Last time I checked, the student left the house of her own accord for whatever reason. That's different than
and
take.
Just randomly showed up at this person's house?
That's different than take.
And remember that this child was only supposed to go to one of two places approved by Child Protective Services, and she didn't. She ran to the teacher, and the teacher did not call the parent and let her know that she was there. And the recording of Cindy Crawford
yes,
saying,
it
"Don't
is.
have to-"
She didn't just randomly show up there.
That's not-
Lori Gilmore-Stein, we're
take.
out of time. I appreciate
that
it.
was good. Thanks,
Executive
Lori.
Director of the
Thanks,
Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. You can learn more by going to coloradoparents.org, coloradoparents.org. Feel free to join the conversation. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, as you can imagine, the text messages are lighting up on this one. 6135. A teacher's a person of trust. The girl is underage. Red flags. 5556 saying, Bill, you're right. This was no kidnapping. No one forcibly took the girl. Also, police were right not taking her into custody. Child Services should get a court order to take her into custody. I'm sorry, 5556. I mean, the idea that a parent has to go to Child Services to get their daughter back from a teacher? What? It's not the parent's job to go take the child back. They should have never taken him in the first place. All right, so much emotion. We got to get to a break. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Oh, got to push a button here. Hang on. Because it's still got music going on. Got to stop the music. Okay, now let's see if we can do it. Okay, let's just pretend
here
again.
We go.
710 KNUS. Nope. Okay, third time. 710 KNUS. Winner!
Well, as you can imagine, Billy and I taking the debate all the way to the end today.
As always, it's
From
so fun.
Deion Sanders to a student living with a former teacher and trans husband in Durango. Lot to debate. Trump, too.
Why you listen?
Go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. Thank you to everybody that called in and texted. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Hope you have a good Monday.